I'd like to call to order the planning board, zoning board of adjustment meeting for Flemington Borough here Tuesday, October 8th, 7 p.m. We are recording. Can all rise as you're able, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, this meeting is called pursuant to the provisions of the Open Public Meetings Act. Both adequate and electronic notice of this meeting has been provided by way of publication in the Huntingdon County Democrat and Courier News newspapers on or about February 1st, 2024 and January 30th, 2024. In addition, notice of the meeting was posted at the Borough of Flemington Municipal Building located at 38 Park Avenue and any handicapped accessible entrances thereto, posted on the municipal website, provided to the municipal clerk, and distributed to all persons, if any, requesting copies of the same. This meeting is being recorded with both audio and video and may be rebroadcast. This meeting is a judicial proceeding. Any questions or comments must be limited to the issues that are relevant to what the board may legally consider in reaching a decision, and decorum appropriate to a judicial hearing must be maintained at all times. Phew. Wish I could record that and just press go. Alan, can we take the roll call, please?
Yeah, Mayor Carroll. Here. Councilwoman Pissarro. Here. Mr. Campion.
Here.
Ms. Giffen.
Here.
Mr. Hill, Mr. Dashna, Mr. Cook, Ms. Weitzman, Mr. Eckel, and Mr. Schob are all excused. Mr. Semino.
Here.
Wingle.
Here.
Ms. Kaczynski. Here. Mr. Perico.
Here.
Mr. Harris.
Here.
Is here for Ms. McManus and Mr. Troutman.
Here.
That was 5, right? 6. Okay.
All right, item 1 on the agenda is a period for public comment, and this is for public comments about items that are not currently on the agenda or under our review. Nobody in the audience, seeing nobody in person. I can't see the sidebar. Alan, can you tell me if anybody has their hands raised online? I don't see
We have no
any.
other attendees except for the board members.
Right. All right, so seeing none, we'll move on to item 2, mayor comments, please.
I believe that the historic designation ordinance will be introduced Monday night. Our attorney's been away, he's coming back tomorrow. So, but I believe it's been assigned and completed and submitted. Our clerk unfortunately is stuck in Florida. She was supposed to be back already, but Abigail will get back until at least Friday. So we're in trouble right now, yeah, thanks to the hurricanes. Yeah, she got stuck down there with the first one,
Right.
taking her mom back home, and now she's stuck on this one. So, we'll see what happens on Monday. I just want to also, reintroduce John Tillotson, our construction official. John came in here when he was first hired about a year and a half ago almost. And he's came back in, he's gonna be frequenting our meetings, when he sees things on our agenda. Because, you know, there's been a lot of rezoning in this town and a lot of questions in his office. So he just wants to witness what's happened so he knows what's going on. But Carrie, you mentioned at some point that about resolution compliance.
Yeah, probably something that would help you out a lot when things get to you, at least from this board, is if we had something that was issued, so just to kind of give a quick explanation, so the board adopts a resolution, 9 times out of 10, there are conditions to that resolution, and the conditions usually have to be complied with before a building permit or any other permits are issued. Sometimes it's post-construction, like an as-built survey or something like that, but most of them are before the permits are issued from his office. So I think what would be helpful is the board professionals would review those conditions, make sure they're all satisfied, and then we come up with some kind of procedure, whether it's me, Bob, that, you know, whoever it is, doesn't really matter, authorship is irrelevant. But just that there's something that's issued where all the professionals agree, and it even can be, some towns just do a form. Where everybody is listed and just checks off or initials, yes, my things are done, my things are done. And then that goes to his office and he can at least see, and we can even attach a copy of the resolution, so everything's all in one. Yes, here's the resolution, yes, it was adopted, all the conditions have been satisfied, and now it's in your hands to be able to take it from there.
So let me ask you a couple specific questions. So with that checklist, I mean, this is a Mr. Bob question. That checklist would include like that Bob got and signed and sealed and a performance bond is now in place.
That's what Kara suggested.
So that would be on the list, and then what about things like, my bugaboo always is the sewer water issue. It's just because they've gotten planning board approval doesn't mean they get sewer water.
So what I would say is, and we can be as specific as you like, and this may even go to more specific conditions of approvals, but one of your conditions is always any and all other outside approvals necessary, including, you know, utilities, county. So that would be one of the things that Bob would be looking at in his review to make sure that that's there. Before he would sign off that there's resolution compliance, that would need to be there. Again, we could be more specific, so it's literally line item by line item, condition by condition, if that's easier. But that would be part and parcel of what that review would be.
We left checklist, don't we, Mr. Norberg? John, would that help you?
Um,
I'm guessing no.
The permit application shouldn't even come into my office till all the prior approvals are met. Shouldn't even come into my office.
But they are coming in, is that the problem, and you don't
Yeah,
know?
and you have been sending resolutions through the email. If it comes into my office, the resolution should be in paper in the folder. So as I go through it, I can see that it's there.
So that could be
That's-
twofold,
process.
that could be I mean, obviously, we can't control what an applicant does as far as submitting a permit application.
Yes,
There's
and
only
I
so
thought-
much we could do. But maybe what the permit application should include and be revised to include is a copy of the signed off resolution compliance and a copy of the resolution. So then that way, it can't or shouldn't be getting to you until that attached resolution compliance form is there and the copy of the resolution. I mean, that's the most control I guess we can
Would
have.
seem to remove ambiguity at that point, because then you would know that something's supposed to be on there, I just like to make it clear. Right now, it seems like we just almost guess that what's good, you know, we're two sides of the same process, right? So we need to like work together to get everything done.
So a compliance resolution comes from this body?
And
And,
it's, again, it's not really, the board wouldn't pass a resolution, it's really just coming up with some procedure that we
Okay.
could implement in order to make that happen.
Kara, there's like
And,
two, I'm sorry,
no, please.
there's two stages to this too. It's compliance with conditions that have to be met before the board signs the plan, that it's an approved plan. And then there's potentially a whole host of other conditions associated with prior to getting a building permit or things of that nature, because I mean, we kind of distinguish it that way in the law actually sets it up that way.
Because there could be stages in a project where,
There's certain things that have to be met before the board signs the plan, yeah, this plan is approved.
Mm.
But there's other things an applicant would have to do, you know, Kara mentioned the posting of, under the MLUL, you know, the posting of, under the local ordinance, posting of a construction inspection fees, posting of performance bonds if they're required, under the law, you know, things of that nature.
So-
Scheduling a pre-construction meeting, things like that.
is this something, Kara, that you or Bob takes the lead on drafting, shares among the professionals, shows it to John, gets his input, and then would bring it to the board?
I mean, I think between us and the other boards and towns that we've seen, we can put something together or, you know, not recreate the wheel and just put something there for you, and then we can decide if it makes sense to make that part of a permit requirement or how we want to do that. But we can certainly work through and figure out the easiest way to do it and, you know, consult with John and then bring it to the board and see what you think.
Yeah, in Bridgewater, they give me they give me the plans, not the plans for the building per se, but the planning board, the application. Asking for my input, if any. Like, T-Berries. Right, they bought the building, they figured they got planning board approval, they're gonna move right in, and they didn't realize that they needed sprinklers, and it put them at a disadvantage. When we did the plan review, all of a sudden there's sprinklers. So if it came to me first, I could possibly make a comment, this may need sprinklers.
So you're saying you'd like to see it the same way like the police and fire would review it?
Yeah,
You'd like
yeah, I
to
get
take a
it.
look at
That
that?
does
did
get
an
sent out, the
opportunity.
links get sent
Sometimes
out to all the departments, to the construction department, the zoning officer. The police department, the fire marshal,
So you get it, you just have to have Maureen pull it for you.
You
Because
know,
what happened, like T-Berries is such a good example, because once they, made the adjustment for the sprinkler system, it's only gonna be on the first floor.
Mhm.
And,
They made some changes.
well, now right now they wanna move
they have to move the kitchen upstairs.
right, so now they want the, walk-in,
Mhm.
the walk-in.
The other look.
On the other location, because the chef is gonna be going right down the steps in the back, so right, it would have saved them that time,
Well, the sprinklers are also very costly.
right? But Maureen she must get, is it John that gets
I
them,
can
or
copy Maureen on that.
Maureen, so Maureen's been getting them, or,
Well, I send it to all the departments, yeah.
okay, so Maureen.
And I gotta go into my office in the morning and ask some questions too. So, put the blame on anybody. Trying to-
Yeah, we're just
I'm
trying to figure
make-
out
Make, so I can
a better way to do this.
make sure it does not.
Yeah, so don't save the applicants money.
And we do get 7 copies of the plans, we can,
I usually get, in Bridgewater, I get 2 copies of the signed plans, that tells me I know that the plans have been signed by the planning board.
That's after approval.
comes-
that's after,
that
You want
waiting
copies.
But
for.
it comes with the
yeah.
packet, it comes with the application, the building permit application,
Do you-
before even plan review.
Do you want a hard set of plans? Or are you okay with?
Well,
the
you get 7 sets of plans, right, in here, is that what you do?
Mhm.
Well, that's with the initial submission. When they sign them, they sign as many as you want.
And then how many, where do you would distribute them?
I get one, 'cause I like paper,
One goes to your office, a paper copy with signers, with the
Okay.
transmittal.
Mhm.
I give one to the tax assessor, I give
Okay,
one
then-
to the zoning official, and
give one
and I
to
give one
our,
to water and sewer department.
and one goes to the committees, the commissions, they share it. Shade
Not the
Tree.
sign plans.
Oh, not the sign ones.
Yeah,
no,
no,
I don't get
let's
the
make
sign
sure we
ones.
talk about 2 different things. We've got the application coming in and those plans that John wants to have, if necessary,
Ahead
input
of
on if
time.
there's anything, and then
Right,
post approval, sign plans from
yeah,
the
no,
board.
John
once the
gets those,
preliminary
but
conditions.
the
Well,
post.
well, the other thing that happened was 78 Church, I wasn't aware that there was a bond that needed to be posted. I knew you got through planning board, but I didn't know that they didn't post bonds.
Is that the Rite Aid building?
Yeah.
Yeah, it wasn't, it was a construction.
And once it
inspection.
gets to a bond, the kind of goes out of the planning board and into the clerk's office, so there's so many different departments that have to get involved with
I know,
each,
so I'm trying to-
phase of this that we need to
We need to-
coordinate.
I was trying to plug the gaps, that's why I'm here. just trying to get
I think
grants.
it's fantastic that you're here. It starts the conversation that we need to continue on to tie up these processes to make sure we're doing everything correctly and professionally and.
And I think if we
expeditiously.
can, if we can get some forms or documents out there, then, maybe even a meeting, a Zoom meeting, something. just
Yeah.
To kind of, for at least us to get on the same page and then bring it to the board.
If you ever formed, you said Bridgewater, if you ever,
Well, no, we use the back of the folder. Plan,
Okay.
in the inside, pocket of the folder, the last page of the construction.
Jacket.
Are all the prior approvals for sign, zoning signs off. Cause it should come in,
I think.
you
we're
should
clear
get the
on that,
permit
too.
application also, it should all come together through here. And then back to me, and if you sign off on planning board, I look in the back folder, there it is. Somebody signed off on the planning board, zoning,
Absolutely.
board of health. Whoever is involved.
Alright, so we can take a look at the jacket info, we can put something together.
Maybe-
Work out a way that
maybe
works for
If we
us.
just put the permit application package with. With the application before it even comes to you, and it just stays all together as it goes around. Comes back to me, everybody that touched it, that needed to sign it, signed it, that would help unless you can come up with something else. I'm not trying to tell you how.
Well, we can identify one copy that does that, surely, basically there'll be a copy that does those rounds.
Or-
Yeah, I don't know if I
That
want,
way.
I don't know if the board wants to be responsible for the jacket with everything. I mean, I think we could probably do it. I don't know,
I think
let's
we need
let's
to
talk.
discuss-
A checklist, I could
Yeah.
work
What's not
some checklists.
working, what's
Once
not
I get
working,
used to it, it'll.
Yeah, once we start doing different applications for different departments in it, I think there's a chance for everything to get confused. Because there are several sets of plans that get submitted. Possibly multiple different kinds of revisions before we actually, from the initial application. To when you have a signed set of plans that you know, Bob and Beth have signed, you know, approved. There could be multiple sets, and I think there's you know, real
Well,
opportunity for some confusion on what plans are there.
so let's just focus on planting a seed in everybody's head and let it rattle around up there until we come up with a plan. Once
absolutely.
we get a plan, we all get used to it, it should work fine.
Exactly, and I think it's a very good point, and I think it's something that would improve how it works on all.
We want to reduce confusion, reduce the chance for mistakes to happen, if there's something to happen that affects the applicant and wastes their time and money, we wanna make sure we tighten everything up. Totally
It's not
agree
that
with
it hasn't been, you know, going down that road up until this point, but if we can improve it, why not?
No, exactly, there's nothing wrong with checking, I'm a procedures person, I love it.
I know you
Procedure. Let's do the procedure, and if it doesn't work, then we change it, and if it, then we would change it to what works. For everybody,
Thank you.
right, no problem at all, we'll work on that. Okay, is that everything? No, we have anything else? Item 3, council comments. Or did you want to mention about the train, or shall I do that later? I'll do it if I remember. Okay, we don't have Dennis for item 4 of the HPC comments, but I think we got one thing through, did I see?
For
one
tea
thing
berries.
Came through for them that T-Bridge went through and they did that, so that was all signed up and they're working ahead. So I don't think we have anything else from them anyway.
Yeah, they put in a letter about the village.
Yeah, I saw that.
That was it. That was what I saw. So we have that ready for when we get to that point.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll move on to professional reports. Separate from the agenda items. Do you have anything, Carla?
I did have the opportunity to speak with counsel for the lender on the sign.
Mhm.
They are in the process of making some changes. They love the idea of having a meeting once they're ready, and they will reach out to them.
Okay, well, we'll look forward to that.
I have nothing to report. No, nothing I said.
And Mr. Troutman is excused, so we don't have that right now. All right, let's move to item 6, approval of the minutes from the September.
He's online.
He's online.
Yeah, I don't have anything, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, sorry, Jay, I didn't have to for you.
I haven't been here in a while, so that's okay.
It's been another thing you caught, it said, hi Jane, sorry. All right, item 6, approval of minutes from September 24th, 2024, regular meeting, those were distributed, everybody's had a chance to look at them. Does anybody have any comments or additions or amendments that need to be made on those? Everyone's very quiet, then we'll assume they're good. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, please? Sarah, approve? We're gonna have to be somebody online.
I'll second.
Okay, so we haven't got any people here. We're not gonna do it. All right, can you call the roll, please, Ellen?
Ms. Fasaro? Yes. Mr. Semino?
Yes.
Mayor Carroll?
yes,
Mr. Campion?
Abstain.
Ms. Giffen?
Yes,
Ms. Swingle?
Yes.
Thank you.
that was quick. All right, let's move to item 7. Completeness, HBC Liberty Village Urban Renewal LLC, application 2024-09. Your time has come.
Good evening, Madam Chair, Mayor, Commissioners, Donald Pepe from Swansea Highway, on behalf of the applicant. I have the applicant himself and our civil engineer here. We did receive some comments from the borough's engineer with
Right.
respect to completeness.
Okay,
And some comments on a checklist. I responded to those comments today. Just set the record, we received them Friday afternoon. We've been working diligently to try and address them. I believe we've addressed probably 40 to 50% of what was deemed outstanding. We're putting the package together. Again, we've only had 2 days. We're confident that everything that was identified as being outstanding is relatively ministerial. I don't know if you want to proceed by going through things item by item. I really don't know what your process is, whether you have the expectation that everything would be absolutely complete. That's not generally my experience. There are a number of items, for instance, notations on a plan that may be missing with respect to a north arrow. I'm certain that we're going to be revising our plans a number of times, probably before we're complete, and probably even after a planning board hearing. So I don't know whether this board's expectation is that every I would be dotted, T would be crossed before you would deem be complete. I would ask that that not be the case. So again, I don't know if you want to go through things item by item. I did respond item by item in correspondence today.
well, I will say, to your point of you only got the response on Friday. That was because I did warn you guys that this is a big application, and that's why we needed a reasonable amount of time for our professionals to look through it. And that's the time they used. So it came as quickly as we could based on when it was submitted to it. So I just want to support my engineer that he made a very thorough assessment. And I will also say he made a very thorough assessment based on our checklist, which is available to you also. So considering the speed at which you guys were asking us to move on this, and I made it very clear, Mr. Valone, that one thing that really helps us help you move this along is when you come to us, if everything's perfect, or as perfect as it can be. So I've got to say, I was really surprised to see, and I hear you said you've already responded to 50% of them already, that's more administrative. But when we see 37, I've never seen Bob list 37 things that were incomplete before. And I get that you feel that they're to different variances of importance. But here's one reason why we did this checklist and why we wanted to make it easier for applicants to be clear what we want and for us to be clear what we want is we've allowed a lot of waivers on projects previously, trusting that the applicant will come forward at the next meeting and everything will be done. And I don't know what the correct phrasing is, but it hasn't worked out well for us in the past, let's just put it that way, which is one reason why we put the checklist. We've allowed applicants that freedom and given them that leeway, and it really has just caused long-term problems for the application, because you say it's a little thing, but then it comes up later and it comes up that something was missing based on that. It makes the public hearing process usually longer, right? That's our experience of things that we've seen, right? So that is why our mindset has come from, and that's why I'm not minded to, I don't know whether it's useful to go through the 37 one by one, or whether it's more useful for you to talk out of this meeting, get that at this to where Bob can mark all of these things, nothing's incomplete. And then come to the next meeting and sail through.
Well, it might be
I don't
helpful
know.
to kind of categorize, because when the applicant filed their initial application, they did not indicate a request for any waivers. So inevitably, if something wasn't there, it's incomplete.
Exactly.
We weren't considering making a recommendation, they're asking for a waiver, yeah, it's a good idea, no, it's not a good idea.
Right,
So you had a very black and white, very distinct, yes and no kind of situation.
yeah,
In looking at the response that came in this afternoon, there's several categories here. There's a few items where the applicant is saying that they have this on file, not as part of this application, but as part of their prior discussions with the borough as part of the redevelopment. There's items that the applicant is saying that, for whatever reason, they inadvertently didn't provide, and they're willing to provide before the board schedules the hearing. There's items the applicant, is saying that they're willing to correct on the plans, but only after they make a first set of revisions, which means you would be deeming it complete, starting a process, and then at some point in the future, you'd be getting additional information. And there's other items that they just outline, just asking for a waiver for reasons that are outlined in the letter.
Bob,
I think that's essentially the four categories of,
out of those categories, which ones are you okay with?
well, you'd have to go through item by item, to
I
kind
meant
of.
the categories, I didn't mean the items. Are you okay with them?
In some cases, well, the first category, escrow agreements and things like that that are on file because of, I'll defer to Kara, it's an administrative thing. We don't have one as part of this application before the board. If the ones they already have on file with the borough are fine, then that's an administrative, process. Escrow fees that are required as part of a site plan. So this is also a site plan and a subdivision submission. They're indicating they have something of record with the borough. Again, I don't know what it is. I don't know if it was filed in, I don't know if it meets the standard for under MLUL and our ordinance for filing the site plan. I don't know what it is, so I shouldn't say it wouldn't, but only because I don't know. I would doubt that it would, but I don't know that it would or it wouldn't.
And if I may, to those points that Bob just said about the administrative things, they might seem like silly administrative things, but it was a point I tried to make very clear that I recognize that this project has been backwards and forwards, and you've done a lot of work together. And there must necessarily be a lot of paperwork, different versions of things, different agreements out there. That this was the chance to be really clear about what exactly we are working from. And now the fact that you're saying something's over there and something's over here, just put it in this application, put it all in so it was all clear. Do you see what I'm saying? That like, let's have this one application packet that is absolutely, there's no concern then in the future of confusion about which
I
plan
don't
or paper
disagree,
we're talking about.
I don't disagree at all, but I mean, I have to give you some, for instances, we requested a tax and water clearance. Those items were paid, we did not receive it until today from the municipality. We have an escrow agreement in place with the municipality, it was established as part of the redevelopment process. It's our intention to continue to rely on that. One of the comments of incompleteness is that the application isn't signed. I know that the application was signed, there may have been copies that got to the engineer that were not signed, but certainly that's something that Mr. Rome could sign today. I know we submitted a survey. The checklist suggests that the survey was not submitted, it was part of the site plan. So there are a number of items that really, I would submit were largely beyond our control.
Bob, do you want to go through this checklist? Is that
I think, there's some things here I can't request for waivers. I can't, tell the applicant the board will grant them or not grant them. So
And
I
that
think it
would
would be
certainly be the
beneficial.
most effective use
I
of
think it would be
time.
beneficial to go through the
Request
items.
waivers on a number of items, not a large number,
Yeah.
5 maybe. And when you say there's 30 items, there's at least 4 items that are repeated 3 or 4 times.
Hang on 1 second, so you want us to go through the
I
checklist?
think you should go through it. Again, I think you're gonna find there's four boxes, you're gonna put these things in, I think, as you go through them. Maybe you'll find it.
Are we working off of your?
Yeah, you
report
have
from
my
October 1st,
report and
or
you have
his
the
report from
applicant's.
October 8th.
You have the applicant's response to my report, which essentially is addressing items that.
I got it.
Well, hopefully,
Is addressing items on the checklist that we identified as being incomplete.
So that's checklist, I need to check with them because there's no guys around.
I don't know.
I have them,
I did restate in my correspondence what the checklist items were, so that would probably be the source of both the issue and the response.
Right.
If I may suggest that's the appropriate.
All right, then let's dig in.
All right, it would probably help, the first part of the response
Which
is,
is, are you on your report? From the
well,
report?
my report and their report are essentially the same thing. They're responding to items in my report.
Right, I just want to know when you're holding in your right hand.
The first responses they're making are to the submission of documentation, which is outlined on page 2 and probably page 3 of my report, where I noted what documents we received, and then I made some sidebar comments, like, for example, on the application form, I indicated we got an application form, but I noted that it wasn't signed. So the first part of Mr. Petty's letter is basically responding to those particular items. They all come back up again in the checklist, so it might just be helpful just to jump to the checklist items. And you can fall back on those for like explanation if you want to handle it that way. I think that would be the appropriate. So if you want to do it that way, you go to page 2 of the applicant's response letter where it says checklist. And if you go to your checklist, that corresponds to item by item. So the first item is your item A, which is an escrow calculation. Again, the applicant indicates they have an agreement on file with the borough. Again, our MLUL says you establish an escrow fee by calculating a percentage of site costs, and you calculate the escrow deposits that come to planning board. Again, they indicate they have an agreement and they have something on file with the borough. I'd have to defer to Kara whether that carries over to the planning board or whether we just need to follow our normal protocol and have our own agreement. And just again, pointing out that that wasn't submitted as part of the planning board application.
So do we need that?
Planner Union Hotel still uses their planning board escrow account.
Yeah, without knowing what the redevelopment escrow was for, I mean, if it embodies fees that would be able to be drawn from and paid for the application and escrow fees here, that's one thing, and then it might be okay. If it's for something entirely different and relating to redevelopment agreement issues, do you happen to know offhand what?
It was largely for the municipal professionals. Planning staff did an extensive review. In fact, I'd suggest that they're largely done, even though engineering is not. For the completeness aspect of our concept plan, which was submitted in order to get to this stage, things were extensively reviewed by the borough's professionals. Ms. Kaczynski, I do submit that is an escrow. It's fully funded. We are fine with it being drawn upon. I don't see a need for yet another escrow. But to the extent that is actually a request for a waiver, I would make it.
Do we have application escrow fee calculations?
No, that was the missing.
I think that we're gonna need just to follow the fee schedule, at least to make sure if we're gonna use that same account. Which again, and maybe this is also an administrative question for Eileen, because I don't want to muddy waters with. Do you open a separate account for redevelopment versus planning board? I have no idea how that's done, behind the offices, but I certainly don't have a problem drawing from one account. As long as there's enough here to pay whatever the application escrow fees are, so I think we need to know what they are, but I don't have a problem using the same account. And certainly the same, W-9 in that situation, but again, I don't know how it's done as far as if there's separate accounts or not.
Can I say one or two things to try to answer that?
Where did you, the money that you put into escrow to start the hearing about this? Did you just turn that over so you don't know? Because I'm assuming it went into the same escrow.
It did go into the same escrow
Okay.
account as the redevelopment.
It did, okay.
And it was an amount of 25,000 if there was no calculation with that as well.
And the redevelopment agreement says when it goes below 5,000, we replenish it to 25, and it says it's for the reimbursement of all municipal costs with regards to the project.
Okay, so all
Pretty
municipal
broad.
costs.
Yeah.
Okay, which presumably could include planning board fees. Again, I'm kind of operating in a vacuum, not knowing, but I thank you for
Yeah, that's okay.
clarifying that. Again, I think obviously the important thing is to make sure that we have an agreement in place, we have a replenishment, and if there's enough money there to cover what we calculate are the application escrow fees for this board, because those are of course different than whatever redevelopment fees have been agreed to under the redevelopment agreement. So I think that, even if we're gonna use that account, I think we definitely need calculations to make sure of that. But, you know, Mr. Valon's indicating that the agreement says that if it falls below, they have to replenish, and, you know, that's certainly. You know,
And so far,
satisfactory.
about $180,000 have gone through that escrow account to pay for municipal costs.
And as far as I know, I mean, our municipal engineer indicated that he took a look at the plan, we didn't go into detail today on our DPW call. But other than that, as far as I'm aware, unless something happens, we're done on the municipal side.
Okay.
So, I mean, Beth McManus has had carte blanche to working on the site plan with Mr. Valon. So, you know, I don't see them, unless, like I said, unless something happens, then they're not coming back to the council until council has to do whatever they need to do to move the forward.
I don't see the need for more administrative work on the
No.
Brooks end either. Again, I mean, you know, so just as long as that's not a practice we've done before, we could certainly do that. I just think we need. to
No, they've
calculate
been
the
given
back
all of our
picture.
approvals, so.
Yeah, we can provide that calculation, except, you know, I would submit that I think it is appropriate for a waiver, because unlike your normal process, where I know that the fee calculation for the escrow in your ordinance are based on a site plan, $180,000 of that work has really already been done. It's not all plan review. Obviously, there were legal costs involved with the negotiation and execution of the redeveloper agreement itself, but I know Beth did spend an exorbitant amount of time, not unnecessarily, I'm not suggesting that, but it was a very thorough review to get us to an approved concept plan, which was a prerequisite to submitting here. So I would ask respectfully if we can rely on the existing escrow. We are going to keep replenishing it for whatever amount.
I would just suggest that replenishing it when it goes below 5,000. And you'll bring it back up to 25.
Rather than a waiver.
I say that because I think your
ra- rather-
calculation.
Rather than a waiver, why can't we just get a letter that says what they're gonna, that's what the agreement is, and then we can put that in our application?
We can do that. I
Just-
think,
I feel like waiving it means we like lose control. I just want something where it's stated, we will continue the escrow account as already set up, and we will do the following things.
I'll be candid with
Is
you,
that
Ms.
possible? What do you
Kaczynski.
think?
I'm hesitant, I'm reticent to do that because I think under your calculations, given the amount of site work involved here, it's going to be a couple of $100,000. And we are not really in a position until we get site plan approval, we don't have funding for this project. Just being candid with you, so I'd like to rely on the existing escrow, at least until we get to that.
so I don't necessarily know that we can waive application fees.
No, we're
Not
not
asking
asking for
for
that.
that. Okay,
No,
okay.
what we're asking for is, instead of the formula, which is gonna generate a multi-$100,000 check I have to write,
Understood.
we have an agreement, it was fully negotiated, it was signed by the mayor, it was signed by me, it's the redevelopment agreement. We can provide you a copy of it, there's a section that talks about the escrow, I described it to you a few minutes ago. And we'd like to stick with that agreement.
So if we agree to do that, which means as soon as it hits $4,999.99.
It's gotta go back to
We
25.
will not move your application forward until you give us bring it up to
Yeah,
25,
that's fine, that's fine.
because we have gotten burned here.
The only issue is though that with the turnover in the office, somebody that used to watch it carefully and let me know when it's below 5, I've gotten no notice about it. So the last notice I got was, I think, that it was down to like 45 cents. And then I came in and wrote a $25,000 check.
So that would have been a different so that's something else then if we're gonna do that, because
Right.
that was being done by
No,
on
this
the
is the
council
planning
level,
board
this will be being done on the planning board level.
Right,
So if,
Eileen will.
You take care of that?
I can do that.
perfect, and as long as you're gonna take over and monitor it and let me know when it's below 5, we have no problem.
And as long as you understand, we will not let you come back here.
100%.
Totally understood.
And to Mr. Pepe's point, I haven't really been involved with you guys up until now, but you know, if the plans have been reviewed and commented on, then, you know. Presumably, there won't be that much work that needs to be done at this point, but I think that the board needs to make it perfectly clear that The reason why it may or may not decide to waive that aspect of it is because we have the redevelopment agreement in place. This is what the redevelopment agreement says, regardless of whether it may end up being another 180,000, we don't know, but. These are the parameters, this is not a precedent, this is not anything else, these are the parameters under which the board's.
I'm just looking
waiving.
for something formally in this that says that we're continuing with the agreement of escrow.
Well, that could be part and parcel of a motion to deem the application complete or to grant the waiver.
Right.
You know, and that would be, part and parcel of it on the record and a product of the reason why you're choosing to grant a waiver and deem the application complete once it gets to that point.
Right.
I think that's.
And I will state
that makes
publicly
sense.
that everything Mr. Malone told the council he would do, he's done, you know. through the
No, I
whole
get
development
it.
Process.
It's just to my point. If it
And
was
once he was
submitted a letter
made
that
aware of
said
the
that,
balance
it
on
was-
his escrow, the check was here that, next day.
All the point I'm just trying to make is if you'd have just submitted a letter that said that with this application, we would have just saved 10 minutes of everybody's time. And we would have, I would, that's all.
That was in our response letter. That, all that language is in the response letter.
Yeah, but it wasn't in the application. Okay, all right, let's carry on to the next point then.
Okay, so item B. There was a form not signed and the applicant indicates that the item will be furnished prior to us. So that's the second bucket. There's something they say it's not there, but they're gonna provide it before they schedule a hearing.
So that's like one of our temporary waivers, we would call that.
If, however you wanna classify it, but
Which means it's a temporary waiver for purposes of completeness, but it must be provided prior to our hearing, which we've done.
Right, so
Certain
they're saying that Ken Deal said that don't use Form A, use the two forms, but he didn't say don't submit them as you would a Form A, did he? So I'm confused why we just wait, we want to wait for it, you're saying?
no, this is actually dealing with the application itself.
Yeah, we're at
Okay.
item 9 on page 2.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yeah, it was the statement that the application itself wasn't signed, I mean, I know I notarized it, so we get to that.
The applicant's here. The applicant's here, so obviously.
Okay,
No, we're not there yet.
I was talking at the wrong point, sorry. Apologies.
Item 10 was the, water certification. So again, we did confirm that the water account is paid and current, and I think we got the letter from the borough today. I didn't want to piecemeal give you things now, we will, when I get back to the office tomorrow, I will put a package together.
Again, that's gonna be one of these to be
Yes.
provided items, and I think you put those all in a bucket. And you do respond accordingly with, here's item B, D, item
So
two.
with respect to that, I now do have it. I did not have it this morning.
Mhm.
I have a copy that was handed to in my mailbox today.
All right, thank you. So that's 10,
So that one's complete.
So you're confirming you have it, so.
I do.
Okay.
item 11 is, again, we're referring back to the escrow issue. Item number 12, this was the Form A where we were instructed not to utilize the Form A that's part of the borough's application on its website. We were told to use a different form, which we did,
Mhm.
and that different form is submitted, but technically Form A is not there, it is what
Right.
we were told to submit in lieu of Form A.
We're in the process of changing that over, so you just caught that bad timing on that one, that's all it is, yeah.
What was-
That form may be violation of ordinance.
What was submitted was a request for certain, and maybe Mike can speak to this, the actual Form A, even the old Form A was not submitted. And there's a form there and it has a signature on it, but there's no information. Again, that form benefits the water and sewer department, so
Yeah.
I really would defer to Mike on that.
But those are now submitted, he said, is that what I heard that they're submitted now, are they those two?
No, we're not gonna submit the Form A because when I reached out to Ken in your sewer utility, he said, don't.
He said submit two new
Who's this?
formats.
Correct.
Who's this
This is
person?
Mike Pucci, our engineer.
Oh,
Hi.
how are you? So yeah, so there are, each department, the sewer department and the water department, each have a Form A. And that's what you need to submit, their individual forms versus a combined form.
And
We're calling it a will serve letter.
right,
and
because
Correct.
that's exactly what came out of Ken to me, an email of two separate forms, you were correct.
Correct.
One for sewer, one for water.
Yeah,
I filled them both out, they were both submitted, they were actually listed on Mr. Clerico's initial letter as one of the items that was submitted a little further down in the letter. So I
Okay.
did exactly what was requested, I went by Mr. Deal, and I know that's on your agenda about 4 items after us tonight.
So that's
Yeah,
complete
okay.
then.
that's complete then.
Well,
He submitted the two new
Well,
forms.
Well,
it-
we need
it's,
a waiver
it's
for
not, it's
submitting
not the
Form A.
same, look, this is just administrative, it's not the same form that the board's gonna look at tonight, it's something else. Again,
Oh.
if, you know, if the water and sewer department is satisfied with it, I have, you know, I don't,
If the information is submitted, that would have been on the form that our checklist asked them to submit.
Did
No,
you send
that's-
that to us, or did you send it to the water and sewer department as well?
I sent it to, it's part of the application process that came to you.
So the water and sewer department did not get the Form As.
No, they got it.
Well, they may have gotten them as well, but I know they went directly.
But
as
when
part
you
of-
fill them out.
Mike, Mike Campion, are you aware if they came in?
Yes, Mayor, we asked the applicant to fill out the new Form A for the water and sewer.
So it sounds like they did a will serve request letter, which in most circumstances would be appropriate. We now have the new form, but we just need to fill out and submit the new form or get us a copy if it's already been filled out.
We submitted that.
They are submitted, I'll
You do
submit
have
more
it.
copies of it.
It's,
They have, you said.
They do.
With their fee? The water and sewer department fee for filing that?
I don't believe the form asks for a fee at this point.
Yes.
The fee asks for an application this size, is $250 per form.
It doesn't say that on the form. I mean, I'm fine with that, but it doesn't say
This
that
is
on the
why
form
we're,
anyway.
this is why we're.
I'll reach out to Ken tomorrow morning and clear it all up.
Okay.
Yep, and if he concurs with that, I'll drop the check off tomorrow.
Perfect.
It'll be $250 each, one for water, one for
$250
sewer.
each.
Okay. Just let me know what he says.
Thank you.
so that was
13.
checklist item H.
Mhm. Yes,
And just so I understand, because I'm hearing two different things. We have the two form. We're calling Form Bs, whatever we want to, but the two forms, we have copies of them. Right, Mike or Bob, we have them?
We have a form in here, it's not the, I got it, this is not the Form A and B that I saw before. It's a
Okay.
different form,
Okay,
it says it's a request for will serve letter.
but is that our form?
It came from Ken Deal.
Okay.
It is the fee.
Okay, so that's fine.
It's
Okay, from your-
Don't have the form, don't have the
Sewer
fees,
department,
they're gonna
we're
send
going
me
to
the
add to our.
Want us to use the comply not only with the ordinance.
Yep.
But also because it allows the two department heads to work independently and not wait for the other to release these forms and deem things complete.
Yeah, like we talked about last time, we had one form with a number of signatures for.
And it
both,
could-
this
and
makes
right,
more
and-
sense. I just wanna make sure we had it or didn't have it. 'cause I was
Ken could be
gonna-
holding Josh up, Josh could be holding Ken up, this
Yeah.
allows them to work simultaneously. I
Alright,
think
so all we
that's
need is the
faster.
money, okay.
so we will,
Alright.
and we will need to update our checklist to reflect the other two forms.
We'll get there.
Right.
One thing,
We're just dotting those i's on our end. Alright,
13,
Bob 13,
yeah, this was the submitted county planning board application. I typically don't look to do that because there may be some changes that are requested with respect to the site plan application by the borough. If I submit to the county, then I'd have to revise and resubmit to the county. I understand that this will always be a condition of any approval that I obtain, that I get the county approval. I'm asking for the waiver that I don't need to submit until I've gotten the site plan approval from the borough. So that I can make a single conforming submission to the county. That's a practice that I engage in.
Typically applicants file with the county planning board and with the county soil conservation district as part of their initial filing with the board. The reverse of what was just described here is that if the board acts on an application and then it goes to the county, if the county comes back and asks for some changes, those could be considered substantial. The applicant may have to start the process over back before the board again.
Mhm.
I've never seen, excuse me, I've never seen it waived. I'm not saying you couldn't waive it. You're only doing a temporary waiver. The applicant's asking you to waive it for completeness. and ask you to make it a condition of any action you take, that they then go to the county. Both the county planning board and the county soil conservation.
What if soil conservation has significant issues after you get planning board approval because of the floodplain?
They don't, all they wanna know is the silt fence is up and that all stormwater is controlled and there's not gonna be dirt flowing into the town system, that's all they care about. And I already spoke to the guy down there and I told him that we're not gonna be removing the slabs of the buildings when we do the demolition of the buildings during the demo phase. We're gonna do it during the environmental remediation phase, because we don't wanna pull those slabs up. And if there turns out to be contaminated soil, and then now there's exposure pathways. We wanna be able to pull up the slab, identify the contaminated soil, and immediately deal with it. So he said, fine, then when you're ready to start pulling up the slabs, come in for the permit. I'll make sure that you got the silt fence up, and I'll give you your permit.
So why can't we do it the way around, like we say, that like if you've already discussed it and got a plan in place, why can't we do this item? And that can be what their response is, that's the
It's a
agreement.
question of time and money. It's gonna take time and it's gonna cost money, and I wanna get to the point where I've got my bank loan closed. I have a $5 million bank loan ready to close after I get site plan approval. That's gonna fund everything that gets us through for the first construction of the first half of the townhomes and the veterans buildings. Then that closing occurs, I repay the bank $5 million, I now have $5 million to finish the second half of the townhomes. So half of the townhomes and all the affordables are gonna be built, and the 12 veterans apartments are all gonna be built in phase one. So all the affordable requirements are done at the initial stage, then the last half of the townhomes are gonna be done in the second phase of the work.
I
So
think
it's a time and
It's-
money
it's-
issue.
It's not, this board isn't, forgive me, correct me if I'm wrong, Howard, but it's not part of this board agreement to consider the finances of the applicant in the decision.
No, it's
If we
not.
want to ask for these things, we get to ask.
You're correct, I think he's trying to give an explanation in support of the waiver and timing, and that it's at their risk if they do it that way, it's at their risk either way, you know. Our checklist says completed application with appropriate fees for each one of these. The board has the ability to waive. The reality of it is that in either way, they may have to come back before the board. So if they come back, if they get their approval here and then they go to the county and soils and for some reason there is a change, then they may have to come back here. Or vice versa, they may have to go back to the county if they go there first to get an approval, come here and there's a change. So, I mean, there's a risk either way. And so it's really,
Bob, you
Just
have
a point of
Bob, you have a
clarification, though.
problem with, you have a problem with temporary waiver on stuff.
They're not outside agencies, they're compatible agencies that you would, your action would have to. Your action would be predicated on them obtaining those approvals. That's,
regardless of
So
whether.
that's a long way of saying, no, you don't have a problem.
it could work either way. I'm gonna defer to the applicant based on their financial situation. With their loans, if a conditional approval from the board. It says you have to go to the county planning board for approval, meets their statutory requirement, or their agreement with the bank, the loan agreement. The applicant certainly has spoken to that issue. This board's gonna do their review under our ordinances. Anything we do is gonna be subject to. On a parallel level, the county planning board and the county soil conservation district. On a subsequent level, any outside state agencies, DOT, DEP, whatever. That's statutory. We can't wait, we can't make the applicant obtain those permits. Before we act, we have to act subject to the higher authority essentially.
And irrespective of whether these were requests for waivers, our application or our resolution always says any and all other necessary approvals, so, you always have that catch all.
And just to add a little finer point on it, the checklist doesn't require that I get the county's approval for either. It requires that I submit
file.
an application.
Correct.
No, it's absolutely, you file.
So we are still at risk.
Well, no,
Because
if you file with the county, either agency, probably within 30 days, 45 days, you're gonna get a response.
So I'm just gonna speak for a minute to try and redirect this as the boring little engineer in the corner. we always have to go for outside agency approvals, and any of the boards I've appeared before. It's typical that, yes, there are hierarchies of local versus state and different approvals that are required. The rationale here is that there may be revisions required by the local review, which would then affect and necessitate reapplication to the County Soil Conservation District and the County Planning Board. And the antithesis of that is that if you go for those county approvals, after the fact of the borough, the county or the SCD might require a revision that would necessitate coming back here. We'd always have to come back here no matter what, and in 45 years of experience doing this, I've never seen a county planning board or an SCD require such a substantial change that would require redesign at the local level and require reapproval from the planning board, quite the converse. I've seen many times where the local approval does change the project, and then you have to go back and reapply to the outside county or SCD. The only time that the SCD would really get involved is if they required some significant drainage changes because of drainage concerns, as Mr. Blum pointed out. In this case, I don't foresee that happening because we've already gone to the DEP and gotten a flood hazard permit with total stormwater review, and we're approved from the DEP. So I believe the Soil Conservation District will not have any problem with regard to drainage, and therefore should not really have any concern that would materially affect any approval that might be granted here. But the obvious choice of allowing any changes that may be occurring as a result of approval here could necessitate an approval there afterwards. So it's common practice. I realize it's not part of your standard practice, but I don't see any harm in the potential, as Kara mentioned, call it a temporary waiver, if you will, just as to timing.
I agree. I just think, they're the ones taking the risk on this. They're gonna have to give it to us before, final approval, so.
Right, but
No, it would be a condition of the final approval.
Condition.
That
Yeah,
we
this
get the
would be a
county
waiver, your out and out waiver, because the temporary waivers would be a bucket where they would have to submit that to the board and Bob would review it or whoever would review it, make sure it was there before we had an actual hearing.
Okay,
This, what they're saying is, they're willing to take the risk that once we get board approval and submit to the county, if the county does do something, outside the norm and requires a change, they're willing to come back before this board if necessary for amended site plan approval. That's the risk they're willing to take, but they want your decision before they have to go to the county, so that would be an out and out completeness waiver. Period, and then would become a condition of your approval that they have to submit proof of approval from the county and soil conservation.
And Counselor, the hook for us to ensure we do it is that catch-all phrase you said is at the end of every resolution, that any and all additional local, state, county approvals are necessary. Are still necessary.
And to echo Mr. Pucci, I've probably been involved in close to, if not in excess of 1,000 applications. I've never gone to the county first. That's
right, but
where's this whole report on how this vote?
that's what I was waiting for everybody to have their say. I was gonna ask that exactly, because we don't have any members of the board in person, but I would like their opinion on that, because this is like the first challenge, as it were, to our new checklist that we put in place to avoid this very reason. We put out there that what we were gonna ask for. How is the rest of the board minded to give a waiver on this item, considering everybody's comments so far? Can anybody else online comment? I see Melissa's got her hand up. Ellen, can you,
She should be able to.
Nope, sorry, I don't think that was actually intentional. I think that was one of the dogs bouncing around.
Right, but do you have any thoughts on this now, please? No?
Yeah, to be honest, I see the pros and cons in waiver versus no waiver. The checklist was there for a reason, so we had all our stuff up front, but at the same token, I understand that some of the stuff maybe necessarily can't be here right now, this very moment. So.
Brian or Mike, for this.
I think we should stick with the checklist. We created it for a reason, and I really don't want to set precedents. I don't. We worked too hard on this checklist.
Yeah, I can agree with Mike on that too, so. You know, we have this in place for a reason.
Well, can I just say something? When we were given the checklist, we were told this is a all-encompassing Uber list of things. And anything you wanna not comply with, you give them a reason, you ask for a waiver, you give them the reason why, and the board has the discretion to grant that. So the checklist is really a guide, it's the everything guide. And we're asking, as we were told we could, that if certain items we believe should be waived, we submit those items and we give the reasoning why, and then the board can vote on it. That's what we were told. We weren't told that every single thing on there has to be submitted.
I agree, it's a guide of what we want to see, to
Right.
be able to make our decision.
Right.
And the thing is, when we give waivers and people don't bring these things, we can't make a proper decision.
It's a county planning board decision. That's what it is. It's not your decision. It's a county planning board decision and we have to go get it. There's no way we're not.
There's
gonna
no
go get
way
it.
to
I
not
don't
get it.
understand why we can't just, it can't have just been applied for this. This is,
Because honestly,
This is
we feel-
exactly
We have to not just apply, fill out the application form, we have to submit 7 boxes of 7 sets of drawings of 50 sheets each. And then somebody comes up with a change here, now we have to submit another 7 boxes, another application fee. It makes no sense at all. This is where the rubber hits the road. This board and their experts do technical review, they come back with their comments, they say, we don't like the way this has been designed, or that's been designed, and here's what we'd like you to do to correct the problem, and then we do it.
I just wanna say, when we did this checklist and Mike, I hear what you're saying, but what George iterated just now is exactly what Bob said to us during the entire process. We're putting everything on paper and the applicants have a right to ask for a waiver. I don't see it as setting any kind of precedent because they're all gonna ask for some kind of waiver on every list, no matter what. And, you know, to dig in and say, we're not gonna set a precedent on something that's, their risk and not an unreasonable request, in my personal opinion. You know, I don't wanna dig in like that because every single time we talked about this checklist, Bob said they can always ask for a waiver.
And that's the process you're going through.
And that's the process, they're asking for a waiver, and it's not setting a precedent by granting it, it's exactly what Bob said. We did a kitchen sink full of everything, so that we wouldn't forget either, it wasn't just what we want, it was things that we wanted to make sure that didn't fall off our radar, like Form As. And, I don't have a problem granting a waiver on this, because it's their risk, and they do have to get it. And they do have to go to the planning board, they do have to go to soil conservation. And it's not our jurisdictions, they're not our jurisdictions. So I don't have a problem with it.
I don't have a problem granting waiver. Because at the end of the day, if you go to the county, they say no, you're gonna come back. You can't move forward, you guys, they can't move forward without that county approval. So if we give them approval, they go to the county, what's the mechanism? Other than the applicant themselves to tell us, okay, they don't have the approval from the county, do we get any kind of notification from them? From the
Yeah.
county?
Or
resolution of compliance.
Okay.
We're talking
That
about
would be a
before.
construction permit, I think, that would
Okay.
be your building department would be the
Probably us.
gatekeeper.
Yeah.
Well,
Okay,
something like,
so it would
something
come
like
back,
that
we
would
have
be
it
before we
alert,
sign
right?
off on. it.
Correct.
Yeah.
Okay, so then I'm fine with, if I'm fine with the waiver on this. Absolutely fine.
And it's really,
Because you're gonna get, if you get blocked by the county,
right,
you're gonna have to
for
come back.
me, this,
anyways,
it's really
right?
about the fact that this isn't our jurisdiction, right? They're gonna say whatever they're gonna say at the county. And it's really about giving them the leeway of when they're gonna go to the county. Because it's not our jurisdiction.
And there's
right,
no
but the
reason, we
idea of
have to
putting
go.
it here.
We're on a
was
county
to
road,
think-
which means we have to go,
You're on a state road, you're not on a county
You're
road.
not counting.
state road, and we're on a municipal boundary.
Right.
2 reasons.
Drainage
Well,
probably.
and it's
Drain-
also-
drainage.
Yeah, that's gonna be their issue.
Disturbance is the reason you have to go to the county.
And again, it's largely, I mean, in some applications, if you had somebody who was looking to put in a deck or something like that, that might have required this, or some smaller application where you're less likely to get comments and changes from the planning board. That might make more sense. We're relatively confident that the lion's share of changes to our application are going to come from the borough.
I assume you read the county regulations and you're confident you're compliant with county regulations.
Yeah, well, again, because we have the DEP approval of our.
They're totally separate.
which is why we put it in our list to have applicants think about it ahead of time, precisely to save them time. Like if, as everybody's saying, give them a waiver, then we give approval when they go to county or soil, and then they say, we have to start the whole thing again. I thought that's what we're trying to avoid, is trying to avoid applicants having to keep coming back.
But
Do it right now, put it in and find out.
But
And
that's
then
their
it's
risk.
clear. That's their risk, okay, we were just trying to help. All right, let's move on to item 15 then.
The tax clearance, which I believe we also have, received the.
Liz, I'll walk the,
I got the
taxes, water and sewer bills
lien
all
search,
paid.
but I did not get the tax certification on them.
It was requested, so I asked for a temporary.
Yeah, I spoke to Liz this morning. She said she was gonna put them in your inbox. No?
No, I did not get that. The only thing I got were
You gonna go look at it?
tax title lien.
I have a copy.
Oh,
I'll give it to you. I'll give you my copy.
Well, I can make a copy.
Okay.
I guess complete better than a temporary labor, so.
Absolutely.
We got one of those, we can use another one.
Where'd you go?
Oh, yeah, this is what I got.
Yeah, so that's water, sewer and taxes Liz told me.
Okay.
Good. You see it on there? Okay. So you have that.
It's
It's a hard form to read. She had to show me where it
Yeah.
actually concludes everything's paid, but
I'll
it's
scan this.
all on here.
I had to do that. Didn't take the legal size.
Right, so that was complete then, because
That's
it's marked
complete.
that out.
Yep.
Perfect.
And that was requested about a month ago, by the way. And we just got it this morning.
The wheels turn in interesting ways sometimes, right? Item 16 then.
Yeah, this one's gonna be, this one's somewhat technical. As with any application, the applicant is provided on-site stormwater management in compliance with, representing being in compliance with the stormwater regulations. This board, as part of their review process, has to make a determination of what's been filed is in fact compliant with the stormwater regulations. We have no provision to grant waivers from any design standards or anything like that. It's either compliant or it's not compliant. And we need to make that finding as part of our finding if we're acting on an application for approval. What the applicant has indicated here, we pointed out that there's several, more than several, there's numerous stormwater basins facilities on the property as part of the design of the project. They provided only soil testing, I believe, on one, or I think only on one of the basins. We pointed out that they have not complied with the stormwater regulations in terms of there's missing information. And the response here is essentially that, and we had a conversation about this earlier yesterday, that they're indicating there's a provision of the stormwater rules that because there's contaminated soil here, that there's a provision of the stormwater rules that allows them to defer, I'll call it defer, the soil testing until after such time as they've actually done a cleanup of the site. I asked for a citation of that. The specific citation wasn't provided. I went back and looked through the stormwater rules. I can't find that in the stormwater rules. What they did provide was a thing from their environmental impact statement and from their environmental consultant indicating that in fact there are contaminated soils on the site. The soil shouldn't be removed. They can again kind of summarize what the letter says. What I don't see, and again, if we get into this as part of a review and we get to the point where we have to sign off on the design and we say we can't sign off on the design, inevitably that means the board can't act on the application. So I think this is really kind of a technical discussion we need to have, and now is as good a time as any to have it. Because I don't, again, if you can cite a chapter and verse in the stormwater regulations that says you can defer on this, but in some of these basins require somebody, again, we're not getting into the technical review of what they provided. We're not here to discuss that. We're just here to acknowledge that there's missing information. They're acknowledging that there's missing information. They're saying they can't provide it now because of, again, they could speak to the reason why they can't provide it now.
Bob, just so I understand the purpose of this, so the permeability testing would go to the feasibility of the proposed basins and other stormwater management facilities that the board would ultimately be approving by way of the plan.
Correct. And there's determination of seasonal high groundwater and there's determination of permeability. Some of the basins don't require permeability testing based on the nature of the basins. Some of them appear that they do. And there was only testing provided in one of the basins that I gather is outside of the contaminated area.
That's correct.
And if there's a provision we can cite to, again, we're kind of back to the at their risk, because if the permeability doesn't work and there's an approved plan, then we'd have.
Well,
to
there's
do a
not gonna be an
redesign.
approved plan. If there's no citation in the stormwater regulations or in the best management practices issued by DEP, or some directive from DEP saying that, yeah, they don't have to do this at this point in time, we have no ability to grant a waiver. At the end of the day, our requirement or obligation under our stormwater permit is to say we've approved an application that is compliant with all the stormwater regulations. If those regulations require an applicant to make a determination on groundwater conditions, in order to document that their design is compliant with the regulations, we need that information. Otherwise, we can't approve it. So there's an issue here. And again, they're indicating that they can't conduct the work
Yeah.
because it's contaminated soils. Again, I asked for a chapter and verse in the regulations and we looked through it this afternoon, we can't find it. I see what you provided. I see what your environmental consultant is saying. I can appreciate that. But I don't understand why in doing an excavation on site, if you have contaminated soils, you deal with that as part of the soil op. Just like you would, we're not asking you to rip the whole site up. So I think, we're at a point here where I don't know, even if we waive this, we're gonna go through the review process and we're gonna hit a roadblock at some point when the board's gonna ask me.
Legally waive it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, so the real question is, can we legally waive it, because again, if we can legally waive it and the board decides to do that, then it's at their risk if they decide they don't wanna do it until after the approval, because if it comes back in a non-satisfactory condition, then again, they have to come back for amended approval because they have to do a redesign or whatever it would entail at that point in time, but the waiver is the issue.
Well, the waiver I'm seeing is that what they're asking for is to delay giving us the testing. Is that right? That they mentioned that they're providing for deferral of testing. The citation that Bob doesn't have, that they're claiming is saying that it will provide for deferral of testing. So Bob, you're saying we need to see exactly where it says that
If
to be
they're-
able to
they're
allow
asking
you
for
to
a
do that. If we
deferral.
have that,
Correct.
that
You're
gives us.
asking for a deferral after the board acts on the application.
Right, so for that, we're gonna need to, we can't, as Bob said, we
Yep.
can't act independently of that, of whatever you've found. If you've found something that gives us the permission to do that,
Can
we
I
can do that.
finally interject, hopefully clear this all up?
please.
So this came about during the stormwater review of the project by the DEP. And the DEP review engineer and the supervisor are the ones who told me to seek this waiver. And I will reach out to whoever it is, I don't recall the specific person, I think it was Danielle Jones, but I'm not 100% sure. And I will get the chapter and verse from them, which basically says, do not test in contaminated areas. Seek this waiver, and it's in the stormwater report, the 1,500+ pages that, of course, Bob hasn't had a chance to review it from a technical standpoint.
Right.
Just for administrative completeness, and yes, these results are not there. There are 8 basins on the mall side, 1 basin on the parking lot side. The parking lot side is clear, the mall side has the remains of the iron forge and the soil is contaminated. DEP said, don't test. DEP said, put this letter from your LSRP in your report, and DEP reviewed it and DEP approved it. So I
That's
haven't
the
any concern
letter,
that
if
DEP
you
is
put a
gonna
letter in
have a
here,
problem with stormwater management compliance. We did get a permit from them.
I understand that.
This is one of those situations where
Need
you
proof.
have dual review. DEP's, again, I haven't seen what DEP has issued on this. That's another item on their checklist. But the borough has obligations under their permit, irrespective of
Right.
what
Yeah, that's
DEP
one
has
part.
done.
Right, even if
If
DEP
DEP is gonna assume jurisdiction here for review and approval of the stormwater rules, and leave the borough off the hook. That's perfectly fine, but that's not what's happening here.
And it could go the temporary waiver route with either a specific citation that Bob can review and approve, or I've done this before. Have some acknowledgement from the DEP that this is what they want to
We're
do.
not at all suggesting that we don't do this. That's not even on the
I
table.
don't get it, we just need something
Yeah.
In writing.
in order for the application to move forward that confirms.
The citation is not, I have to call up.
That's not-
Okay. yeah.
We
So letter is,
We need something in writing that confirms what you said they told you verbally.
Right.
To be able to consider whether that might cover us or whether we can then.
Well, do we have to do that honestly? We're again, not asking to
Yes.
avoid.
Yes,
We just said that.
it's the
That's what we
law,
need.
we can't.
No,
No, I don't believe that's incorrect. I do not believe it's the law. It is absolutely the law that we must do this testing. It is not the law that you cannot waive the timing of this testing. You are absolutely free to waive the timing of this testing.
And we
Mr. Kaczynski, I've done this as conditions of approval many times.
A condition of, my understanding is a condition of a board approval can't be a subsequent, the board votes subject to the applicant's ability to show that they've complied with the regulations.
Yes, and that can come at a later date, and I think it makes some logic, because on a contaminated site, if we were to remove 700,000 cubic yards of soil, what good would a test of the soil existing conditions today do?
Oh, no, you're testing,
Do nothing.
no, you're misunderstanding. You're testing for seasonal high groundwater conditions. Which you can certainly, there's other ways of potentially doing that, but you could certainly dig a hole in the ground. You could certainly remove 2 yards of material. You could certainly deal with that material if it's contaminated. You could test for your groundwater elevations. You can provide that information to show that your basin, the way you designed it, is compliant or not. And you can backfill with, just like you would when you go to do the cleanup. Nobody's asking you to take the whole site out. I'm just saying that we're gonna run into a procedural, again, if you have something from DEP that cites a citation, if you have something from DEP that says, okay, Flemington Borough, you could go ahead in this situation and do it that way. Again, it's not what, again, keep in mind that the borough, like every municipality, has a separate license with the stormwater license with the DEP. They're under their own obligations to document compliance with that. If they violate that, they're in violation of their permit, not the applicant. The borough's in violation of their permit.
Understood.
And that part of that permit provision requires that this board make a finding as part of your approval process that what's been provided for stormwater is in compliance with the regulations. And, lacking that existing seasonal groundwater condition, which you have in one case, you do have it established for one of the basins, but not for the others. And
The
again,
parking lot where there's no contamination,
Yeah.
that's the one.
yeah, right, correct.
And the issue is, if you dig
That's right,
holes,
it's a technical.
if you dig
I
holes
know
with
it's, I
contaminated dirt,
understand the problem, and we're not granting a waiver, we're asking that when you go to public hearing, we have that letter that confirms what you said that he told you that we can do.
That's fine.
Yeah, that's what we're asking for, that's all we're asking for.
Okay.
But when it comes to a public hearing, we're gonna need that, or we're gonna need testing, right?
100%.
So
I
if you can
misunderstood.
provide that can come in, and so we're not granting a waiver of the requirement, we're granting a waiver that you could have given that to us now, where we say you can have it, bring it to public hearing.
It's a temporary, falls in that temporary.
Temporary until the public hearing.
Next.
Okay, let's move on. Item 17.
I believe we've gotten written confirmation of the lot, block and address designations from the borough's tax assessor.
yeah, you got that email to you late today. We'll get it to you tomorrow. if you don't have it.
Here, I have a copy.
I got
Oh,
it.
there you go, here's a copy.
There we go, oh, another one. I think that's the right
Thing is just coming in.
It's coming in.
So that's complete. Mike's number 18 is.
Now, what?
18, you say it's not applicable.
What this?
Well, is there a reason that is applicable? How do we feel about that response?
Item S. Alright, so. Floodway, flood hazard designations, the checklist requires a FEMA map showing what they are. We can give you that, but it's so outdated and useless, it's actually.
1997.
So
We,
you would know.
we actually, went and
Just, just,
entire
excuse
process.
me, you got ahead of me. What item are we on?
Number 18.
Eight?
Item S.
Then
So we processed a flood hazard area permit with the DEP, an individual permit, allowing us to fill part of the floodplain and excavate in that compensatory storage excavation area to ensure that we comply with the DEP rules, the flood hazard area control ordinance. And that permit establishes the existing and proposed floodway or flood hazard area on site. The floodway has not changed. The floodway is per the FEMA map and it's down near Route 12, and we're not affecting that at all.
Well, then
And
what you
have a
need to
copy of
do
that
then,
permit.
what you need to do is provide, as part of this application, a copy of that permit,
And
which
the
I believe was not
plans for DEP.
included. And if that permit refers to drawings that establish or document flood hazard regulations or floodways or flood hazard areas, your plan needs to reflect where those are.
And it does, and.
Well,
I'll
again,
get you
I
all those
didn't,
plans.
I didn't see it on the plan, and the permit was not, and that permit was not submitted as part of the application.
And we'll get you all of that information, including the reports that go along with that, a couple hundred more pages to read.
Right.
From ACOM, who did all this work for us.
Okay, that's good, that's what this process is that's gonna do, is pull everything together that's relevant to the application, so that when we go through this process, we know exactly what we're talking about, which reports we're talking about.
And
So
again,
that again is a temporary waiver until the public hearing, right, they're gonna
And
provide it at the hearing.
you would-
Well, hold on, we'll talk about timing, because at the hearing.
I'm still trying to think.
Before the hearing.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry,
we'll
it's
talk
not
about
time
timing,
waiver.
it's okay, it's okay, let's
You
get through
indi-
this first.
You indicated earlier that part of DEP's review was a review of your stormwater management system for the project.
Yes,
And is that documented in the
flood hazard area
documentation?
permit,
I'm sorry,
it's in the permit.
it's in the permit, okay.
Just though, as a technical matter, I don't think that we're proposing to ever provide you the FEMA flood plan. We're proposing to provide you in lieu of that, the DEP permit.
That's
that
what we're
confirms
asking
the-
for, yeah, that's what we're
Provide the
asking for.
DEP permit, they're actually mutually exclusive, but the DEP permit now is probably the primary one.
And but the report from ACOM includes the FEMA map anyway, so you can just see it and see how we've modified it and enhanced their model.
19 is the environmental impact statement, which we provided today.
Did I see something about, we need the 7 copies of that, and did you just provide
Yes,
the
you
one?
did. There was an email that went back from Eileen
Right,
to, no, to Keith
Yes.
at Eckel, and so he will be getting you the 7 bound copies.
perfect. thank you.
And actually, Mr. Troutman, responded also that he does not.
Right, he
need
does not
them.
need them bound.
So 6 would be fine, 1 to Bob, and then we'll have the 5 in the office.
Okay.
Okay, well, let's do 6, thank you. All right. 20, 21, 22, are they?
Yeah, next two are kind of combined. The U is the wetland documentation, and V is obtaining an LOI from DEP. The response here is, well, I should clarify your response. You indicated you filed for the LOI already?
No, the LOI and the wetlands permitting are being done concurrently. ACOM only did the flood hazard work, did not do the wetlands work, so Eckel Sciences, who did the EIS, is also doing the wetlands work, but we told them to get the EIS done first. And they're endeavoring to get the wetland LOI and permitting application in ASAP.
So as of right now, you do not, for the check, but you do not have,
We
your plans do
concur.
not delineate wetlands, and you're not submitting a letter of interpretation, even an application at this point.
Correct.
The wetlands have been delineated by EPOL, and now they're being plotted on the survey, and then they're gonna go down to DEP, and then they're gonna confirm it.
Again, we're just,
The
just so we're clear,
delineated
we're trying to deal
LOI
with information that's
correct.
before the board.
Right.
No, nobody's questioning what you're saying, but it has to be information that's on the plans before the board.
Right.
And at the moment, we don't have that.
Right.
Okay.
So are we suggesting that there would be a temporary waiver to have shown that they started those applications before we assess the project? At least started them, or do they have to have gone further? Well,
Well,
There's the application, doesn't it?
again, you're gonna be in a state jurisdiction for wetlands and delineation and disturbance falls strictly with the DEP.
mhm.
Normally, we ask for this, so you're reviewing an application where the applicant has taken that information into consideration. They have a flood hazard permit from the DEP, but apparently that did not go over onto the environmental side for the, wetland delineation and the issuance of a letter of interpretation, which is basically a confirmation of the wetland delineation. So you're gonna be looking at a project without the benefit of knowing whether or not those agencies have any jurisdiction or any component of regulation over the project.
So recognize the site we're talking about, a mall and a parking lot. There are no wetlands on it. It's obvious to anybody who walks out there. But there are plenty of areas off-site that can be of concern, and those are the areas that AECom did give preliminary field assessments of where there could be a concern, although they weren't mapped and they didn't go through the DEP LOI process for whatever reason. So Echo Sciences is now doing that. They confirmed basically the same line. We know where it is. Of course, me knowing and you being able to review that legally is a different thing. We didn't design a project like this in a vacuum, but we are fully cognizant we must go through the process, of course, and we're endeavoring to get them onto that ASAP. They've been doing the work. My office has already field located all the flagging and it's being plotted. They're doing the paperwork to get the application in.
How long do you consider that might take?
Unfortunately, I don't work for Echo and I cannot answer for them. I would hope we're talking a matter of weeks.
But they work for you.
In
so
terms
you
of-
should know.
I think we're talking a couple weeks.
In terms of having it ready for a public hearing is what I'm talking about, right? I don't want to give a waiver and then you say, oh, no, it can't come in for another 2 months and
God.
then that's the time we've been in.
If they tell
for.
him a couple months, he's gonna fire him.
I get that.
Maybe it's the same temporary to before the planning board hearing, that's fine.
And then as far as the actual, it's one of those higher agencies that we would have to
Yeah.
condition any approval on.
I get it, it's just that Bob seems to suggest that we should
Yeah.
have considered without at least start the process or hear.
Well, again,
what the
even if the applicant has even their delineation of where they think there's wetlands,
Hmm,
that should be on the plan.
right,
What George just said,
It's
it's making it
being
temporary before the hearing,
Yeah.
so.
and it has to be the
Temporary.
hearing
That's temporary for 20.
and 21.
Yeah,
we
I
can
mean-
go together.
Realistically, the next hearings are in 2 weeks and then not until November.
Yeah,
We're not talking 2 weeks.
no,
That's
well, you
too
cannot
far.
because you'd have to submit by Friday.
Exactly.
Which
It's
you-
not happening.
So that's
So,
why that's not
We're talking
feasible.
November, I believe it's the 19th.
But we're gonna talk about that later.
So we'll talk about that, that's the first possible.
Let's keep going.
Right, so for the purposes of timing, we know Echo will have this stuff in DEP long before then.
Okay, sounds positive. Item 22, I guess that's saying that.
We
this
have
list
that,
is-
this document you're looking at is the
Yeah.
request for waivers.
All right.
Right, just
Sign-
going back real quickly, what are we doing with 21?
21 is item V, is item 20 and 21.
It says if issued, so we don't have that, so really it's
They're,
not
they're,
applicable
they're,
at this
they're,
point.
they're gonna provide us with a copy of their filing of the LOI with DEP.
Yeah.
They're gonna give us plans showing what their documentation of where they think the wetlands
Mhm,
are.
yeah.
And they're filing an application with DEP.
So really, B right now, or 21 would be not applicable, obviously, one of the conditions would be confirmation of the wetlands area via the LOI from the DEP.
The documentation of their filing with DEP.
Yeah, well, that's true, I think that kind of comes under 20.
Mhm.
No,
Yeah, I joined them together.
No,
No,
they're
it's one's
mutually
wetlands, one's
exclusive.
LOI.
20 is their delineation of the wetlands, 21 is their filing of an application for a letter of adjournment, asking DEP to confirm that what they filed would what they delineated is in fact accurate.
Okay.
All right.
And
23.
20.
Site photographs, which we have, I thought was part of the submission, certainly will provide it tomorrow, I think it is.
Right,
We focused principally on the buildings that are gonna be maintained, because it didn't seem to make a lot of sense to give you photos of buildings we're gonna tear down.
yeah, and often applicants have a group of photos that they present as part of the public hearing. We just ask that that is I've suggested it's best if that's furnished ahead of time, so people can take a look and check that everything's complete before we get to this point and sitting here and like going through photos, right?
So I know what we can
That's
even
fine.
use also is I know there's a lot of photos in the redevelopment designation itself and that study and, you know, probably every single photo you use. is probably in
Right.
there.
Yeah,
Well, we do have it. I thought it was actually part of what was submitted. Apparently it was not, so we can get that tomorrow.
right, okay. Alright, so item 24, you're asking for a waiver of the traffic.
Yeah, you want to
Study.
probably hear from Jay on this
I
thing.
do want to hear from Jay on this one.
We're not asking for a waiver.
There he is.
Yeah,
Into everything now, Jay.
so I received the document today. That documents what we all know, which is that the proposed development is a much lower traffic intensity than the existing uses on the site. I think what I would like to see in terms of a traffic analysis is just the routing of the site generated trips, whether they're going north in and out through town or going south via Route 12, how that split works, and some baseline data from Church and Central and from Route 12 and Central, just the two ends of the project, showing again the assignment of the trips from this development in and out of the two ends, just to confirm everything's clean, everything works. I'm open to board comments on that, but that would be my suggestion for the traffic study.
I don't see a need for it, Jay. I mean, we're using the exact same curb cut on Route 12 that exists today. We're using the Central Avenue intersection on Church Street. Everybody agrees there's way better levels of service that they're gonna result as a result of this being all housing and not a huge mall. And what is that gonna give you? What is that extra information gonna give you?
It's gonna show us, in today's conditions, under today's baseline traffic conditions, that everything functions in terms of your access safely on either end. If the board does not want you to do a traffic analysis, I will simply go out and make my own observations as part of my technical review, and I can give the board an opinion that way as well.
Dick, how are you gonna analyze the traffic generated by the project when the entire site's fenced in and there's no traffic going to or coming from the site? What are you gonna go out and count? There's no movements.
Like I said, the board can make that decision, and I will do it as part. I haven't done the technical review, so I will do it as part of my technical review. I can give them an opinion at the time of the hearing.
He said if we don't give him a traffic study that has all the different numbers on it, that he's gonna go do his own. He's gonna go out there and do the counts.
You're proposing?
No, I didn't say that. I said I'm gonna do observations. I always visit sites and do observations. I'm not gonna do a full traffic study.
This
All right,
This
I'll
is meant to
shut up.
be a very polite situation here.
Yeah.
Meant to be a formal situation. What I will say is you're coming before us with an application for a project that includes roads, new roadways,
That's right.
and you're proposing that we don't need a traffic study. It doesn't make sense to me.
Well, the reason
There are
our
going to be,
consultant,
there are going to be vehicles and traffic using those roads. You're generating trips from the people that are going to live there and have cars there and generate trips to different locations. That people are gonna come in, people are gonna come through, people are gonna come through Stangle and then continue to use the roads that you're generating. I don't see how you don't think you don't need a traffic study.
the purpose of a
I
traffic
would
study,
move a project forward and through this board that has new roads without considering a traffic study. I don't understand how you would think I would do that.
well, the purpose of a traffic study is to determine levels of service and whether there's negative impacts because of levels of service going down because of increased traffic. That, we have the exact opposite situation here. There used to be tens of thousands of cars every week coming in and out of that property. I know because I live in the next town over and I used to come here shopping all the time, busloads of people. So the conclusion is going to be the levels of service are going to be vastly improved. Everybody's clear on that. And yet, we have to spend money and waste time to say what we all know is true.
We can't do a public hearing under the MLUL on, everybody knows that. That's
No,
not.
we have,
evidence.
our
That's not
traffic
evidence.
consultant
We need-
made it, Art gave a written opinion of that effect, supported by some diagrams. There, it's not that we didn't submit anything, we submitted it,
That's part of your submission.
pardon me?
That's
It's not on file with the board yet. It just was published yesterday, but they can file it. They can file it.
Jay, go ahead, please.
What did you say, Jay? We missed it.
The documentation they're referencing is not on file with the board officially yet, but they can now file it. The document I'm talking about is dated yesterday, received by me today. So none of you all have seen this yet. We can certainly accept that as the traffic study document for completeness purposes. I will, however, go look at the flows on Route 12. I'm not going to do counts. I'm not going to do a full traffic study and charge you for it. But I will go out and do those observations. I think we need to know that there's gaps on Route 12 to get this traffic out onto 12. And we need to know how much traffic is going back and forth through town.
Thank you,
Right,
thank you, Jay.
That's fine.
thanks, John.
Item 25 is the survey. I think we've discussed this previously.
Yeah, let's clarify that. You said that's filed with, as part of your application?
It will be, it just came in
Oh, it will
to
be.
us today,
Okay.
and I emailed it to Jay as a courtesy.
Oh, no, the
That's
survey.
just about the next
See,
item.
that's-
The boundary survey.
Yeah, I have a copy here, but we'll get multiple
You're
copies
gonna,
in.
that's a document you're gonna provide us.
Yes.
Yes,
So that's a to be provided.
Item 26 is some notations on the plans, which I believe we're in agreement that with the next set of revisions, we'll add those details.
Yeah, these particular ones are more reference documentation. These are something we could wait. I wouldn't have them just revise the plan to have this shown on the plan. We could certainly review the plan. And they're indicating that now, in the event that some of these sheets have to be revised anyway, obviously they can put the information on, but to just do it for this purpose, I think that this would put this in the category of a temporary waiver.
Right,
Well, no, let's clarify what we're doing. Temporary waivers must be satisfied prior to a hearing. So if the understanding here,
Oh.
yeah, the understanding here is that they're gonna do it with a subsequent revision and they're not gonna make revisions to the plans for, right? That would just be a
wasn't
waiver
using-
for
Yeah, I
completeness.
wasn't using that category.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
the temporary waiver would be that, yeah, it would be, temporary waiver to me would be the application. It can be deemed complete without that information be on the plan, on the condition that they indicate they'll add that to the next set of revisions to the plan.
and maybe we can add the proviso that it's for certainly added to the set of copies that will be signed following any,
You
right?
can almost do that.
We could do it at that point, but it's almost a semi-temporary waiver, isn't it? It's in between,
I think that's what I'm
it's
saying.
in between public hearing temporary and.
Yeah,
and
we're gonna say it's
waiver.
waived for completeness and it will be addressed,
We will expect it on full.
in connection with the next revised set.
Which could come before the hearing, depending on what
Correct.
the review.
Correct.
Sure, but that's as a minimum, like if you don't change the plans until that point, we can add it on at that point. Alright,
Save that because we're gonna use it again on the next page.
owner's signature.
The
Okay.
signature, that would be well, again, I defer to the board, but that would be something similar.
It seems to make sense.
Alright, so same thing here.
Big 28 is
what's on
a scale of plans.
it? Let's throw that in the same category.
Yeah.
Right?
Well,
Well, not exactly.
Not exactly.
This is one where all the plan sheets submitted meet our scale requirements with the exception of the existing conditions plan. In our conversation yesterday, it indicated that essentially everything on this site is being demolished and removed, with the exception of some,
Two buildings on.
two buildings on, is it?
Church.
On Church Street.
Yeah.
What we agreed to do is that they could use the 50 scale plan and just basically cross-hatch the whole thing and say everything on this site, pavement, trees, buildings, whatever's on there is gone. But in the area around the existing buildings where some stuff is being preserved, some stuff is being reconstructed and being removed, they could do it in large detail of that particular area, so you can actually, right now, the plan you have, at least I can't really read what's going on there. To the extent everything's being removed, doesn't really matter. To the extent there's an area that's gonna be somewhat preserved, I think we need a detail, so that would be
And that will be at scale then, Bob, you're saying, so that then
The
they
area-
can see how far around it is being preserved. basically.
Yeah.
I see what you're trying.
So I
Make
would
that
think,
temporary,
I would think that would be something I'd wanna see that plan as part of our review. If you,
Now, when you're talking about seeing
Part
the
of
plan,
revised
you wanna see the enlarged detail.
yeah,
Alright, so maybe,
Do it
maybe
this
the
week.
way to
It's just
handle,
a revised site, do we do a revised site plan or not?
so maybe the way to handle this is. We could separate this into two issues. The note to the existing conditions and demo plan is one, and then the enlargement detail. So revising the plan to reflect on the existing conditions can be the waiver and dealt with as 26. The enlargement detail can be a temporary waiver, because that's a separate plan.
No.
Is that?
The enlargement is gonna be on the existing conditions plan, there's a
oh,
corner of it where it's getting blocked.
yeah, it'd be revised.
The way, the temporary waiver, I think it is. That we're not expecting the whole site plan to be provided at scale when it just shows everything demolished, we just want the. The buildings that are being saved at scale, and the rest can be at a smaller scale, that's what we're saying, right?
They'll resubmit the sheet they already have, they'll just add a detail of
At
the
full
area of
scale.
the site at a larger detail, so you can actually.
That makes sense.
so it's a change to one sheet.
Yeah,
And do you want that one sheet now, or as part of the revised plans that we're gonna do with all the other stuff?
No,
No, he wants to see that now.
Again, let's deal with the buckets. We got what I was calling the to be provided bucket,
mhm,
which is essentially,
Temporary.
and we had a bunch of these up to this point where they said they have information they're gonna provide.
Yep.
The DEP letter, or whatever, all that's gonna have to come in. That bucket's gonna have to be filled and documented that they filled it. Before you're saying that we now have a complete application, and before you're gonna schedule a public hearing. The other bucket, the temporary waiver bucket, is just that. For completeness purposes, whether they give it to us or they don't give it to us, the application is complete without that information.
right,
And if it comes in during the hearing, at some point, keep in mind, at any time during the point of this hearing, an issue comes up. Even if you gave it a temporary waiver, you say, you know what, we really need to have that information to make a decision. The applicant's gotta provide that information.
mhm,
It just is really, it's just the completeness purposes, just under the municipal land use law, really is to start the clock. When the clock only starts after there's a complete application.
right,
And that's the to be provided bucket, when that's full, and we determine it's full, then that's when the clock starts.
mhm. All right. So 28 is clear on your side, 29. For street cross sections,
Yes,
the applicant requests a waiver.
I think there's several items here, but the street cross sections, yes, we can grant a waiver on the street cross sections. There's another component of this, I think it's in the next
Yeah.
item.
And then you come to the centerline profiles and the centerline data. We agreed, if, you can speak first, Bob.
Yeah, no, we had a conversation, we agreed that they're going to provide centerline profiles of the roads, are gonna incorporate the utilities on those particular profiles. We're not gonna ask them to put a plan view and the cross and the profile view on the same sheet, which is what the checklist requires.
Okay,
But there's gonna be stationing on that drawing, so we
On the
can,
plan.
we can review both documents together, they just won't be on one sheet.
Right.
The issue I had here, though, is you indicated that, on the next set of revisions, I'm gonna really need to see that in order for me to review this. That's how we review these kind of applications. There's a whole series of roads, that are, even though, albeit it's a site plan and roads might be private, there's a whole series of roads that run through the site. There are RSI standards we have to review this against. So I have no problem, saying we could do it that way, but we're gonna need to see that information.
That's not gonna be something I can turn around in a matter of a day or two, but by next week.
Again,
Right.
this to be provided bucket is gonna be listed here. The board's gonna vote, however the
I mean,
board's
this is
gonna
one of the
vote.
things prior to
And
schedule.
prior to.
And what they're saying is that we won't schedule a public hearing when this is all said and done. We'll decide how much time we need after the bucket is full to schedule a hearing, but it's basically defining what it is you need to do in order to be considered complete. And it is separate from things that you're gonna ultimately have to do as part of the application, but not necessarily before the clock starts.
just a technical question, if I may
Mm,
speak engineer. Utilities, all we really have is sanitary. There really isn't any storm because it's all under the GI stuff, it's basically sheet flow and infiltration basins. Do you want water mains on the profiles? I mean,
They
they're standard
typically-
4 foot cover, but
typically if they cross, if there's crossings of, that's something the borough would want to see, if they're crossing storm drains or something like that.
yeah, the only storm will be a crossing underneath.
Yeah,
If you need the water mains.
yeah.
I just
Well,
know that.
you've given us, you have storm profiles. They're just not on the center line of the road.
Right, there, nothing goes through. the road.
So you can take that information, incorporate it into the center line road profile, and you have both of them
Again, you're
together.
gonna have the crossings of the storm. My question is on the road profiles, which is where the water line is gonna be. Do you want to see the water line? And Mr. Campion might want to see it as well.
Yeah, they might want to see it. You probably should show it. Typically, it's shown. Typically, it's shown. It's shown at a uniform depth, and where you cross something, where you have to change it to cross something, you show
You
that.
drop the water main, loop it.
You should- Or go over, or drop it, whatever you're doing.
This is 30, 31, and 32, all the same?
This is, item 30, item 11B, we did 11A, 11B, profile, yeah, it's the profile sheet. Yeah, and 31 is centerline curve data.
That's gonna be on
That-
the plat, right?
Yeah, that honestly, I don't really, it's checklist requirement, whether we have it here or not. These are not public roads. They are in easements you are dedicating, but eventually.
Access
It would actually be on your subdivision plan more
Right.
than it would be on your site
Yeah,
plan.
And the central angle data would be on the subdivision.
Yeah,
So this is like the waiver for item 26.
no, we're on item,
No, I know, but we granted a waiver in connection with 26 because it's waived for purposes of completeness, but will be added to the next set of revisions.
oh, that bucket,
Yeah,
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 yeah.
yeah, that, you're right, that's the other bucket.
32 as well?
Hang on, see, is,
What's
temporary waiver.
site triangles.
32,
We did that, I mean, there are very few and nothing is impacted because the
yeah.
ASHTO standard, so.
Again. If it's not on the plan, I can't review it and comment on it. I could, as part of my review, I could just say. Information to be provided, leave the comment open.
Yeah, I mean, it's a technical review, do you want it now or do you want it later?
Well, if you want comment on it.
If I'm only giving you one sheet with the blow up and 2 profile sheets, that's one thing, or if I'm giving you an entire revised set of plans, that's a different animal.
I don't know where these easements are, so I don't know that, you would have to be a better
Yeah,
judgment of
they're gonna
that.
be on all the plan sheets.
Again, if,
Are they there now, or you're gonna add them?
They were just worked on today, so they'll be there by the end of the week.
So they'll be on the plans that we will be able to review at public hearing.
So if you want them for the public hearing, then they go in the interim bucket of the things I'm going to do
Could be, yeah.
within the next week or so.
Right, so the engineer has the opportunity to review them.
you know, honestly, I think at the end of the day, you're gonna probably have to revise some sheets to show this stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, we're dancing around trying to avoid that, but I think at the end of the day, that's what.
Yeah,
it
we'll
boils down
lump
to.
all this together at
First,
the
the
end.
public hearing looks at the complete set of information that I'm saying this is gonna come again later. Let's just put it on before the public hearing and then everyone can see exactly what's on there. I think this is an opportunity to like get that set plans that's going to be constructed. Clearly.
12 is next 33 is a survey which they're gonna provide.
Yeah, they mentioned it, yeah. So that again will be in the items. In the bucket of items for the public. The survey.
34, I'm gonna really have to defer to Brett on this. This is referring back to the documentation that they worked out with Beth. Again, this is not gonna be part of my report, because I'm not gonna comment on zoning information. But there's again, from a completeness standpoint, there are no setbacks and that kind of documentation shown on the site plans. They're asking for a waiver of it.
And the logic there was that, just as with the demolition issue before, we're not showing all the existing setbacks to all the existing buildings because they're all being demolished.
I would comment on, yeah, if it's an existing building, no, I wouldn't want to see that. We're talking
The
about
two
the
that we're
proposed.
preserving, we have shown additional detail for those buildings. All the proposed buildings, what we had worked out with Ms. McManus was that we would show the physical setback dimension at key points wherever there was a concern or it was close. And we would update the plans because she obviously reviewed many versions of this site plan I've been working on for years. That had different setbacks shown on it, and we now have the setbacks shown to her satisfaction with all the second story overhangs versus the ground story patios. To make sure they conform to the 10-foot buffer setback or the 25 for the upper story. So we made sure that our general notes and our plans met all of her intents. My general notes with regard to bulk setbacks started out at about 15 lines. It's probably 60 now, because we were very meticulous with her office and made sure we complied with all of her requests. We, I believe, satisfied all that. I'll leave that to your.
Well, we got the consistency letter, so
So
that's.
just for clarification for the board, we did find that their concept plan was consistent with the redevelopment plan, like the concept plans provided in the redevelopment plan per the redevelopment agreement. So that's the review that they're referencing, how we went back and forth and figured this stuff out. I'm not sure exactly on the specifics of why this was flagged for completeness, but I just wanna be clear that the consistency review we conducted is separate than the completeness that Bob is conducted, but they are correct. We did go back and forth a lot about
It
setbacks
has to be
and.
consistent with the redevelopment plan, which just established all of these bulk criteria and setbacks.
Correct.
And we had to add a lot of data to make sure we made you happy.
Do they need a waiver? Because he's saying that it's on the drawings. So they've actually provided it. So do they need they need a waiver to provide it in a different manner? Is that what they're looking for?
So I think I'm just a little confused as to what like the specifics of what wasn't provided, but
Setbacks for the proposed building. Take the existing buildings off the table.
Okay.
We're not worried about the existing buildings. But the checklist required for proposed buildings to show, setback documentation. If you want to, we can actually read you what the checklist says.
It's pretty much what you have there.
Yeah,
Building envelope, size and location of any existing proposed structures with setback lines shown in dimension for all existing and proposed structures from property line.
and I believe
Setback
that,
lines
yeah,
are there, the building envelopes are there, and the setback lines are dimensioned. But what we do not have are dimensions to all proposed buildings. We have dimensions, specific callouts for certain key proposed buildings that are close.
right, like those like pinch points where it was like.
Exactly, like the veterans' homes are close to the property line. Wherever there's a deviation required for the existing structures on 1 and 5-7 Allies Building Church Street. Those have existing deviations, we call out those numbers, they're in the chart and on the plan. What we didn't do is put a setback number from the boundary of the tract to every building at every location to every perimeter. Because the setback line showed that we graphically met all of those. However, when it was close, we did put the dimension to make sure that it was numerically correct and it wasn't up to, well, is this close or is it close enough?
right. When we put this in the category of a waiver, and again, when Beth reviews it, you guys review it. If you see issues, you're gonna raise issues.
Yeah, it'll definitely come.
I think that's proper characterization from all.
Yeah.
We're showing it graphically. We
It's like a
just didn't
survey,
provide
if something
dimensions.
seems to be close, you're gonna put
We're
the dimension
providing-
there as opposed to something that's in the middle of the property.
They're providing it just in a slightly different, okay, good. All right, 35, let's move on.
The next item is showing the gas lines for the property. They said don't add it, but they would like to add it as part of a subsequent revision. Again, I don't have a major problem with that. Again, if you're gonna be ending up changing some sheets anyway, you may want to add it anyway.
What I had stated yesterday was that we were gonna add the existing gas lines and existing electric, that to the extent that we know it.
Well, you're saying all that's coming out.
Right. Just on Church Street really is the gas line. That's the only thing to be added. All the proposed gas and electric lines will be designed by the respective servicing utility. And at such time as they do that, then we can add it to the plans, but I'm not gonna show a proposed electric line buried underneath the extension of Central Station, I think it's called now. And say I'm gonna put a transformer here and there, because I'm useless with that. That's gonna be PSE&G's determination,
JCP.
the JCP. Sorry.
Well, eventually that information has to be on a plan that the board is looking at. Or signing off on at least. I understand their dilemma because they need a detailed design from the utility company. Typically, on a site plan, the applicant proposes something. And if something changes as a result of it, we've had this on a couple of site plan applications in the borough where transformers were proposed in one area, and then it turns out that they don't work there and they have to move it to a different area that requires changing the parking lot layout or putting an island in or something else.
Landscaping roads.
Landscaping items and whatever.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we make that a condition of the first certificate of occupancy? So at that point, all the utilities are in, we'll do an as-built plan and we'll submit that to the town, so you know exactly where all those lines are.
What we can do with that approval time, that would require a waiver at this point for completing that.
And then it becomes a condition.
I think at the very least, it's gonna have to be something that would be before the board signs off on the plan. I think it's gotta come at some point where we have a set of plans
When you
that
say
we're-
sign off, you mean approved and.
that we sign the
signing
plan. This is
plan?
this is the.
So I think that's what he said, well.
No, he's saying something different.
You're saying before CO.
We're not gonna have any, there's gonna be no utilities in the road by the time the planning board hears this thing.
No, a proposal on a plan of where you're gonna put them. They don't have to be installed.
We're not putting them. JCPL is installing their lines and their transformers, Elizabeth Town Gas is installing their mains and their lateral, we're not doing any of that. But I know we need to know where it all is.
There you go.
So I'm suggesting we make it a condition of the first CO, because I'm positive by the time I go to John for my first CO, everything's done. There's no question about it, it all has to be done by then.
What happens if? What Bob just referenced before is sometimes where they wanna put it, then changes the configuration of a parking lot or whatever. What happens if that happens?
That's why I
don't know.
can't do the drawing. You gotta
Okay,
let
we're
them
going-
do the drawing.
Too far down here, this is
talking
just
about
completeness,
us.
whether it's gonna be a condition of approval
But
prior to
that's-
CO.
But that's
prior
what
to
I'm trying to
sign off.
understand. What if it changes your plan and we've given you?
It does, it's all under
We
the
can't
road.
change.
You
No,
All on-
that's not necessarily true. No,
All
That's
you-
not, that's not.
Utility lines are gonna
It's
go
under the road,
underground.
but where they go under the road could affect other infrastructure that you're putting in.
Okay,
But their conduits are not gravity driven, they can move their conduits around as need be. Their transformers, if they say, I wanna put it there, we're gonna say, no, that's a parking space, you find another place for it. If they have to do a bigger transformer in another location, just because they have to service 4 extra buildings, because they couldn't put it where they originally thought, too
You're
bad.
stating that whatever is approved, you're gonna tell the utility companies, no, and nothing's gonna change.
we're gonna give them our approved plans that show the water and sewer infrastructure that we're installing, and then they're gonna work around it. What's that?
And landscaping.
And all the landscaping,
So
and
we
then
don't
they
think
have
we
to
can
put, they have to fit their plan around the approved site plan. We're gonna say, this is the approved site plan, put your utility diagram together, and don't mess any of the stuff that's already been approved. And they will do that.
We're gonna need to see the proposed gas and electric lines, even if it's at concept level, what they might be. We're gonna need to see the electric service lines, proposed lines, where they might be. You're saying you're gonna tell the gas people or
It's
the
gonna be
electric
underneath the street.
people. Gonna be here, and then the transformer is not gonna be in the middle of the street.
No, we're not
It's
telling
gonna be
them.
on the side of the street.
No.
So you're gonna have to put that on the plans where the transformer can go without changing the
I'm
plans.
not an electrical engineer, I can't tell you I need one transformer on the site or 50.
We tell them where the utilities are that we're installing, and then they lay their utility plan out.
Mhm.
And that's how it works, and then they install it, when we're doing the site work, we're in there doing our stuff, they come in and they do their stuff, and it all gets done. So I'm suggesting that as a way of hooking the board into being able to know exactly that that was all done, that we submit that plan prior to the first application for a CO. That's when everything's done, that's when JCPL made all their layout decisions, where's the transformers, where's the mains, where's the laterals, same thing with the gas company. After they figure it all out, they're gonna give us those plans. We will add their plans to Mike's plans of the work we're doing, and now you have a complete as-built set of plans of everything that exists underground. That's the way it
Plans
works.
will be after the planning board has signed off on the plans before.
Right.
Right.
So they won't be signed by this board, no.
But this board doesn't have jurisdiction over where the electric company puts their lines, and the gas people do it.
Well, to
That's-
provide a
that's
little
not
bit
sure.
of comfort, if for some reason the gas company or the electric company required material changes to what our approved plans, we would have to come
Then we
back.
gotta come back.
That's what I was asking.
Then we gotta
Yes.
come back.
No, they would, again, that it's more
That's why I was
for the
saying,
application portion. And what you feel at that point, once you've actually looked and got your technical review comments, I mean, again, we've got a couple buckets here, we'll go through all of them at the end, but. You know, this is just to get them to the next level, so we could identify what still needs to be submitted in order for the board to hear this application. The items that we're gonna be waiving, if we get to that point tonight, are waived for completeness purposes and the scheduling of a hearing. If during that hearing you find you need something else, like Bob said, you can
Right.
always ask for it and we could deal with it then. But this is just to keep moving this forward so we can get to the next level.
yes, don't forget, I was just keep trying to get
Oh,
everything
I-
on the road,
I
make it a
agree.
lot easier and quicker.
I
This
hear
way
what
it's
you're
gonna
saying.
take longer.
Absolutely, and we don't have many waivers. I
No.
will say, most of the things we're talking about here are temporary waivers that since some of them were gonna be provided when we do plan revisions, and it sounds like we're doing plan revisions.
Mhm.
All of these things are probably gonna be in that bucket for the most part. We only have a couple waivers that I've seen so far,
Yeah.
and a couple items that have been provided.
This next
Right,
item actually,
sorry, I was gonna say, before you go, we've got a few items left on the sheet, we usually stop at 9 for a break, let's finish the items on this sheet. Then have our break, and then we can do it, make sense? Yeah, let's go for that. 37, that isn't this
this is,
similar
what kind of, we
to,
talked about this, already. This is the stormwater testing.
similar to.
It's similar to the prior, yeah.
16,
They're gonna, just to reiterate, they're gonna provide their documentation that they filed with DEP.
Yeah.
And the fact that they have documentation from DEP that says that they don't have to do the testing at this point. We'll have to sort through that, as part of our review.
mhm,
It's
okay,
38 like 18.
Excuse me a second. 23, 38, is, they say they have the document, they're gonna provide it.
Okay. Yeah, so that's like 18.
39, yeah, well, we talked about that, that's the 50 scale drawing, you're gonna
Yep.
mark it up and say,
So
that'll be
one is,
provided.
it's like the drawings one, like the,
28.
Yeah, 39, they're saying all the trees on the site are being removed. Our checklist says you gotta show existing trees on the site, they're saying whatever's there is gone.
Nothing is salvageable.
They're all cracked trees, we'll put all new trees in. Kind you were looking for too, the ones that are native to the area, they're all on the
Nice trees.
plant listing now, the landscape details are all there.
Because the Shade Tree Commission has the same.
They're all detailed, the Latin name and everything.
Technically, we're waiving that particular item. The checklist says you show individual trees.
right,
They say we're not gonna show the individual trees because we're gonna take them all out.
That's a waiver.
That's a
not
waiver.
showing, but they're gonna show new ones on our proposed plan, right?
Right. That's correct.
Okay,
Item 40, they're indicating that's actually, I missed it. They're saying it's on the plan. I didn't get a chance to look. I'll take their word for it.
40 is okay.
41 is the truck turning template plan. That would really go back to Jay.
yeah. Jay, you wanna see a truck turning plan?
Yes, I think we should be able to demonstrate that these intersections can handle a single unit truck, garbage truck, trucks for move-ins, and also a fire truck.
I was gonna say fire truck, yeah.
No, everybody does it. Thing that Jay's talking about? You guys, okay. So
Yeah.
when is that?
We'll expect to see that,
You got that in my view?
that public hearing for sure.
So that goes into the bucket where you'll have it before the hearing.
Yes, please.
I would just ask Jay, can you send me your fire truck template that you want us to use?
Yeah, we'd have to confer with the fire department on that.
I just wanna make sure I use the right one, so I don't make a guess and get you upset.
No problem. You won't get me upset, Mike. You never would.
Only I do.
That's
That's my job.
42 is the showing fire lanes and getting input from the fire official. They're asking to do that as a part of a subsequent revision. I would think at some point, the planning board's gonna wanna hear from the fire. official.
Absolutely.
We are gonna need that for public hearing. We usually have the fire department give us a letter of where they've reviewed things, so they're gonna need to see that then.
Is that the fire marshal that does
It
that?
goes to the.
Yeah.
branch.
Yeah,
Okay.
Yeah,
Um,
Actually
he
got
submitted,
something from that.
yeah, he submitted his.
He's one of your
report.
7.
That was
Right.
sent out,
You did?
yeah.
okay,
You have a,
Yeah,
re-
Ken is
on it.
on it.
Good, well, then we have that, but we'll just wanna look at the,
But did you
Right
get
after
it?
they
Sure,
submitted.
sure.
Not-
it.
I don't know.
He got
You got it
it,
today.
similar to the same.
Oh, we got it today?
John gets
You got it.
I got it.
Oh, okay.
Can you share?
Yeah, we'll share that.
I thought everybody got
Put
it.
that on, we send it out right away.
alright, let's
So
just,
you gave it to
for the
me?
record, we have
Yes,
to make
where's
sure
the
we
other?
capture just one person talking at a time, so let's just.
so that one,
That will
but
be submitted then.
they'll, rather than changing the plan, they're gonna submit the fire marshal's, comments, and
Yes.
we'll
That was,
evaluate
that
that.
was submitted to the whole board as well.
I missed that.
I totally missed
It was, you said it was quite a while ago, but I think it's got there.
it. Maybe.
Right, I can imagine just ask, before public hearing, I'm probably just asking to clarify that it was down to nothing changed. You know what I mean on that, especially considering the truck turn.
So why don't you take a break maybe and we can
Yes.
sort through which buckets. we're on.
Yeah,
Good.
I think we only have 3.
Yes,
That's the way I'm looking at it.
we're gonna take a,
Waiver before the hearing at some point.
And totally waiting.
we're gonna take
Oh, and okay, that was my turn.
we'll take a break till 9:10, because we don't wanna start new business before 10 and we've got another item to do, so, and then can we pause the, recording, please?
What time we coming back? Yes.
Restart, yeah, we haven't, yeah, we still have the votes, yes.
We need Adrian.
Because they,
Well, we have a roll call to.
we have 5 left, we're all right,
The good one is still.
everybody can't go to sleep.
We have the AC going, so. it's freezing.
It's suddenly got really chilly.
Okay.
We've all been talking way too much hot air, that's what it is.
I've been told before, not
We triggered the AC off. We need to change the set point, we need to have a contentious meeting. I know, it's my jacket going on. Alright, do we need, are we, Carl's busy about the way, I'm not gonna finish right away.
No, go ahead.
So we're at the
We don't have
point,
Adrian.
Adrian left.
Adrian, left.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Right, cause Adrian can't do the next one anyway. Right. So we've gone through the list, I'm guessing that's your testimony as well as for completeness, you feel that. With the discussions we've gone through. I'm presuming you would like to request to deem us to deem it complete.
I would with the waivers and conditions that we discussed.
Right.
We need to articulate those for the,
Oh, yeah.
Yes, that's why I'm waiting to let her finish writing, because I know that she's gonna want
we
to.
need like a bass drum or something, so you can follow the beat there.
I mean, that certainly would make it more enjoyable for you guys. I don't know if it's gonna make any difference.
Are we gonna do this like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, or in bucket 1, or?
That's what I'm doing right now, yeah. 36.
We usually put item numbers in buckets.
Yep.
And we could explain them, but yeah, that would definitely even make it even more fun.
There you go.
40.
Whatever we do.
Yeah, the
Color.
song, the hole in the bucket, there's a hole in the bucket.
Oh, I love it.
I love that.
As a kid.
As a, I was my favorites.
She sang that sound.
Little time.
Oh, I showed it to her.
Oh, really?
I laugh hysterically at that to this day. Absolutely love it.
Well,
It's-
I
With
will-
what shall I amend?
I will bring 3 buckets at my next.
Please.
We will mark the, I will stencil on the side. Waiver.
And we know what our karaoke song
Okay,
is.
ready to go?
Ready to go. let's
I
go.
am, but before we do that, I don't know if we actually came to a resolution, or maybe we need to talk about the county and the soil conservation. I don't know what bucket we're gonna put that.
I understood.
I kind of had a question mark on that, I know we pulled the board a little bit, but I don't know where we landed, so I don't know where to put that.
Well, Adrian and I were do the waiver, Mike and Brian were don't do the waiver. And Melissa was on a fence and the chair never waited.
Is that, okay,
So I guess what we're gonna, unless you want more discussion, I guess what we're gonna have to do is put in the.
I can make a list and see if it,
Make the list,
Census, okay.
see who votes which way.
Okay,
They might have been swayed, I don't know, different people might have been swayed one way or the other, but.
alright, so let's explain the buckets first.
Mhm.
Alright, so we've got 3 buckets. We've got a temporary waiver bucket, which is going to have to be provided at least. Well, here's how we've done it. All of the temporary waiver items need to be provided
Before we schedule here.
before the hearing is scheduled. So
Yeah.
they're submitted, Bob confirms they're all submitted, the board is notified, Eileen gives us a hearing date.
Mhm.
That's a temporary waiver. Waiver does not need to be submitted. However, at any point in time, if the board feels after they've seen and heard the application that they do need it, along with anything else, like any other normal application, they can ask for it. And the okay bucket is, we've got it, it's in, it's done. Make sense?
I love it.
Make sense?
Yep.
Alright. So. Bob, you got yours too, so we check and
Yeah,
balance. each
actually, I
other?
think the easier, and I know you've been working off numbers from the applicant's letter,
Yeah.
but really ultimately we have to do this off the checklist. We're referencing stuff in the checklist. So the easiest
You have
way
a
to
nice
do
big
this,
one, Bob, that you can read, and you see what you have, it's like.
well, I know. So if we go through these,
Okay.
I can mark up,
Glasses.
I can mark up
Yeah.
the checklist here where we have waiver granted or not. I could either put a C as being complete, a TW as being temporary, or a W as being, and then I'll have a recording of it.
So
So
we're just
just
looking at the ones that are having completes by them at this point.
incomplete
Right now,
by,
it's
yeah,
just
so
a
let's,
multiple
And then that can
option.
formulate what you're like to do
Temporary
once he makes that
waiver.
revision.
Yeah.
Done.
so the first one here, A, is your escrow, the whole discussion we had about the escrow calculation and the escrow fee. He has something on file with the borough as part of the redevelopment plan. Is the board gonna look for something else, or just you're gonna carry on with that agreement?
We're carrying on with that agreement.
Okay, so that would be basically a waiver.
Well, they're gonna provide detail, yeah,
It's a waiver.
it's
I'll make sure Ms. Kaczynski has a copy of that escrow agreement. So if
And
you have
again,
any
It's a
issues, we're not,
redevelopment agreement. That refers to the escrow.
yes,
Yeah.
Redevelopment, yeah.
thank you.
D was a completed copies of the application. I think that had something to do, we have to go look, I think, with the signatures and stuff. And that, I think, was a temporary, you were gonna provide that, I think, the signatures on the.
Alright, so that was 1, and then we hopped over to the checklist at 8, right?
I'm just going down the checklist. You're gonna find that in the levy, you're gonna bounce back and forth.
Okay.
So what item was that, Bob?
On the checklist is item B. In his letter,
No, that's fine. Don't do the checklist.
Hey, can I ask you a question about these signatures?
Go on, sorry,
Can I ask a question about the signatures?
which signatures?
The ones that Bob said, that there were certain forms that required my signature that it wasn't on them. Can I just come in and sit with Eileen and go through them, your box of them, and whatever ones I didn't sign, I'll sign right on the spot with her? Can you do that? Just to get
as
that
long
done.
as it's on file.
Is that okay
How
with you
about,
guys?
I mean, how many do we need? Just the one that's on file, or do you need every single?
I just need to
Some
know
like
you
the
have
shade
it.
tree is, I mean, do they need a signature?
I just need to know you have it, that's all.
So one complete set of everything signed, if Eileen says
As
she
long as
has
Eileen
it,
says
she's
she
happy.
has it, then she
you have
has
it
it.
set, right? You have it set, so why don't you and I go through that tomorrow, and whatever ones I didn't sign, I'll
I'm
sign.
not here tomorrow, but.
Oh,
I can
whenever you
leave
tell
them
me.
Out and, you can come in and sign whatever that you need to.
Who you can leave with, just so I know who that's for.
Well, Carla's not here, so.
we'll wait for you.
Well, when you back, yeah, when you back.
We can do this later,
Yes,
please.
we'll make an appointment.
Okay, we'll just make an appointment.
Yes,
Perfect.
we'll do this later.
Right, letter E
And
of
We've got
63,000.
some other things to do tonight.
So like I said, item A, really, if you start with,
I'm with you, I'm with you.
yeah, the checklist item starting on page 2 of his letter. So-
That's where I needed to
Okay,
check, that's
all
right.
right, so we're starting there.
Are you gonna go over the entire checklist again, or are you just
No.
gonna rely upon
We're-
Ms. Kaczynski's?
We're not going through the whole checklist, we're just gonna go one by one, this should take 5 minutes.
We're just identifying what bucket these things fall in.
Yep.
Item B was the signed application form,
I'm gonna do
Yeah.
that.
Temporary waiver,
Okay.
yep,
temporary waiver.
Yep.
Item E, the water and sewer,
that's
they're,
okay.
they're saying it's okay. Item, G is escrow agreement.
It's a waiver.
The waiver goes in the same as the first bucket. Item H, is the, sewer, it's a companion one.
Temporary waiver with regard to money only.
Correct.
Okay.
And one and then
And
two.
M, was the,
Waiver.
And one's the county.
no, M was,
There was no M, it was
there
just
was no,
M.
and that's actually, let's put that in a waiver category.
Well, we didn't have.
Did we discuss it, Bob? Which one is it?
If M, that's because we were using this letter and not the,
Commission resolutions.
resolution applicable to the property, certification of an open request was submitted, yada, yada. I would just call that a waiver. We all know what we know about this property. We don't need to have.
And it's a redevelopment
It's a
area, so
redevelopment
any
area,
prior
so it's-
resolutions aren't gonna matter.
Yeah, right.
And I did submit the open request.
Okay.
And now you got your county planning board and your soil conservation district.
So,
There's a waiver and waiver.
You're gonna put them in the waiver category and then you're gonna vote and decide how you vote.
yes, yep.
Tax certification, we have it.
Tax
And the
certification,
water and
which
sewer.
one? What item is that?
Oh.
Oh, it's,
Item 15 from the list.
Yeah, so item O is on the okay,
Right, P is the DEP on the soil testing.
temporary waiver.
Temporary waiver, they're gonna give us some documentation from the DEP.
Yep.
That says what it says, that they say it says,
Yeah.
and then we'll have to evaluate that.
That's what it said.
Written verification on block and lot,
That's okay,
that's okay, that's complete now.
Yep.
The
18, item
the
S.
delineated floodway, they're gonna
Temporary.
give us it's a temporary waiver, they're gonna give us their DEP permits, and they're gonna document on the plan anything relating to those permits.
Yeah.
T is okay.
Environmental impact statement we got, so that's now complete. The wetland reports, they're gonna provide that, it's a temporary waiver,
Yep, for you and V.
right? And the same with they're gonna, temporary waivers, they're gonna give us a copy of their filing of the LOI with DEP. Waiver requests, and we have it,
Yep,
that's,
Okay,
yeah,
W,
that's
so-
okay, site photographs.
Tomorrow.
Temporary
no,
waiver.
temporary waiver,
Traffic impact statement, we are waiving,
temporary waiver,
Temporary waiver.
temporary waiver,
because they're gonna provide the letter with the
okay.
drawings or the.
Well, I thought Jay was gonna review what we submitted. and then-
That's what we're talking
Yeah.
about, yeah, we don't have
That
a
means
copy,
temporary waiver.
What you submitted wasn't submitted to the board.
correct,
Oh, so we'll just get copies to it.
Correct.
Okay, that's fine.
Survey.
The survey, temporary waiver.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The plan revisions,
temporary,
temporary waiver. With the graphic, yeah, because you're gonna be revising the plans anyway.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Same thing, for-
everything.
Yep, reference benchmark, same thing.
same thing for the next,
Signing of the plan, is you're gonna come in and sign whatever you gotta sign.
Yep.
The scale, we worked that out, that's a temporary waiver, that's gonna be for
Correct.
the detail,
Yeah,
okay?
Is it still a waiver because the 50 scale won't comply?
it's a waiver that everything doesn't. have to
We,
be on
we're
the
recognizing
documents.
that, you're giving us a detail of the part.
Yeah.
We're recognizing.
11A is a waiver,
We're actually waiving that, yeah,
Yep.
we're waiving cross sections. Centerline profiles, a temporary waiver, you're gonna give us that? But you're not, we're waiving the fact that it has to be on the same sheet, but you're gonna give us the profile.
Yeah,
correct,
Centerline curve data. You giving that to us or not?
Temporary
that's
waiver.
a temporary,
Temporary waiver.
11 days. Temporary.
12 temporary,
Site triangles, temporary waiver.
13 is done, I believe.
The survey is temporary waiver,
Yeah.
that's item 12, item 13, the building envelopes,
that's a waiver,
we're okay
Waiver
with
is
that.
done. What
Okay.
they've done is, yeah.
The gas and the electric.
temporary,
Mhm.
Wait, is that the gas and electric drawings?
no, that's item number 35 in your letter, it would indicate you added to the next revision, so that's gonna be temporary, but that's the existing gas service lines. The proposed, we understand that, you know, you're gonna deal with that at some point down the road. But temporary, you're gonna show existing and I guess.
We're
What are
gonna
you gonna
show
do for
existing
proposed?
utilities.
No, any revision later needs a temporary waiver.
Correct.
Not prohibited
Okay, just the
completely.
Church Street building, okay, I'm sorry.
So it's a temporary
Yeah,
waiver.
I gotta look at where we are here.
That was
37,
21 and
23.
22.
Yeah.
Permeability test is gonna be the DEP thing, we're gonna
Yeah.
put that in a temporary waiver.
Hold on, I had 21 was temporary waiver, 22 was waived.
No, they're both the same, 21.
They're the same thing.
22.
Okay.
Electric, get one's electrical, one's gas.
Okay.
And the 23 is the soil testing, they say they have a letter from DEP that says they don't need to do it now.
I'm confused,
It's
is
a
20 and
temporary.
21 waived or temporarily waived?
Temporarily waived.
They're temporary, okay.
Because we need it at some point.
I just,
Yeah.
it's fine, it's.
I get it.
It's different things, you know, it's not-
Yep.
23 is a,
Temporary.
Temporary waiver, gonna give us something from DEP.
yeah. Same with the 24.
Same with 24.
Permit, 39, 25.
Existing
waived.
trees is a waiver.
That's a waiver.
30
Okay.
signs, they say it's on the plan,
The sign, yeah, there's only one sign, it's on.
so we're gonna say it's complete.
Done.
I didn't see it, but what did they say it's on, and they told us where it is on the plan. so.
Yeah.
Truck turning templates is a temporary waiver,
Correct.
they're gonna give us something.
Yep.
And they have something from the fire lanes from the fire marshal, they're gonna provide that, put a temporary waiver, because we don't have it, but they're gonna provide it.
We've got the letter that he submitted, so we'll take a look at that.
You have
He's
that?
got- Yep,
Oh,
yeah,
okay,
he submitted his.
so
copy.
we're saying that's, okay,
That's okay.
we're saying that's complete.
Right. So.
Motion and a second to grant the temporary waivers, waiver and waivers as outlined.
So moved.
I have a second from the board, please.
I'll second.
Thank you.
That's Brian.
All right, any additional discussion from the board based on the motion? Melissa, you got your hand up again, is that a definite? You're off again.
I don't think she has.
Anybody from the board? Mike, Brian, Melissa, any comments before we take a vote? I think everybody needs to be done. Okay.
I think everybody's asleep.
I don't know, they start talking, but there's nobody here.
If they don't come, I feel it's from being in person, it's, they don't speak, there you go. How about that, apples?
Like that.
Okay, then let's, take the vote then, please. I'm going to call the roll on that proposed.
Yes, Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Semino,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen,
Yes.
Ms. Swingle.
Yes.
Right.
Thank you so much for your time this evening, it was a lot.
Right, it was, in terms of date, as discussed with because of the temporary, large nature of the temporary waivers. We won't discuss date until we see movement on this going forward.
Until they're all in and
All
checked
in,
off.
all in and checked
Yeah.
off.
And how much time, I mean, Bob, we always discussed having everything kind of submitted at one time instead of tomorrow I'll have the survey and
We-
the next day we're gonna have the DEP.
Kind of a package.
We're gonna have like a,
Maybe
you know,
one or two extraneous, but we'll limit it
but
to one or two.
try to limit and put them all as many as you
And
can.
especially for the larger items that would need more of a technical review, there are some of those in there. We like to give our professionals as long as possible, like don't submit those the day before any hearing date that we managed to set, right, they have to be submitted
No, they're
in
gonna do
plenty of
it.
time.
I
And
think-
also,
I think the
if we-
question is how much time do we need?
Submitted.
From the, when the clock starts.
The first date that it could possibly be is the November 19th meeting, and in order to notice for that, what day would they have to notice for that? We would have to have everything submitted before the notice
Well,
date.
Bob needs to be.
Like the sixth.
I know, but we
Bob
haven't got
needs
the
to be able to
notice
review
date.
it.
Probably, well, the 5th would be the deadline for the publication and the demo.
The
Yeah,
fifth is-
I'll be honest with you, there's so much here, we're gonna probably start looking at it in detail
I-
before,
I totally, I
Yeah.
get it. But in terms of formality, having it for the notice, we need to have it for the notice date, let's put it that way. So if you want to notice for the
We'll have
19th, it has to be in by the 5th. That's a fair deadline, right? Yes, or do you want me to say something
No,
else?
no, I think it's fine, I think we just let them go and let them get it in and we'll
Just,
do it.
I'm just giving you a heads up.
Our goal was the 15th.
What's the 15th? There's no meeting on the 15th.
No, our goal was to resubmit in the next week.
Oh,
15th of October.
Oh, you're ahead of, you're, okay, good. We look forward to seeing it.
and your
We look
meeting in
forward-
November is what?
The
19th.
19th and 26th.
They're saying they're gonna have it a month in advance. That's,
Well,
I can't speak.
I live in hope.
It's almost 45 days.
And at which point, when we receive, we will put you formally on the calendar. How's that?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Agenda.
FYI, that is the League of Municipalities, some of this won't be here.
Mhm.
Maybe. some
Oh, is it really?
won't be here.
Yeah,
It is the
The
first night of the
19th.
league.
Let's let them get it in and then we can decide when they're on.
right,
Yeah.
just give you a heads up.
Not scheduling it tonight.
It's all respected.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank
Good night. Give you a third seconds.
Sorry about that.
Right, next
Is that
item,
your water?
um,
Maybe that's mine.
item 8, public hearing, national pools and spas. I believe the applicant has.
Provided, yes, notice that they not
Karen,
hearing today.
I have absolutely nothing to say about this application, rather than be sitting here and charging the applicant.
I'm very jealous, but feel free to go. Sorry, yeah, National Pool and Spas, the applicant has, given us the okay to delay, did they give a date when they were looking to?
No.
It's actually me too.
Oh.
I'm on that.
I was gonna say, you're right.
Hi, Steve Bruin.
I should just assume at this point, today, shouldn't I?
So, yeah, we,
So we'll leave that to with no further notice, do we, like, move it,
yeah, we would like to move it to the 19th, next November. We're gonna retain a planner and present planning testimony.
right,
And
well, you just
that-
saw what might be also on that date, so
We'll
we'll
work
consider
with
that.
the board, keep an eye on it, so I don't wanna do this again.
But if you're working with a planner, then we want to see all that documentation that they're coming up with as well, would we? Or
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
I need submitting documentation before that
No,
work here,
it
or
will
we
just
could
be
just do it
testimony.
on the day as testimony?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes a planner will submit a plan, it's
Right.
not
Okay,
typical.
we're complete,
Yeah,
I forgot,
but
sorry, I'm.
If they have something, they
Okay.
certainly can, or they can just test.
Alright,
So we would just announce that and
Jay, yeah, oh, I'm sorry, just two things. Jay, also, do we need you for this one? Do you want to, sign off, Jay? Feel free to if you wish.
Yes, I will. Thank you, Karen. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.
that's it.
Alright, everybody's here that should be here. Excellent. Alright, let's move on then to item.
I'm sorry, can we just make an announcement that the hearing on national pools will be adjourned to November 19th?
No further notice necessary.
Sorry.
Thank you.
And that all of the notices were reviewed and our board had jurisdiction.
Right,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Item 9, public hearing. 110 Main Street LLC application 2024-07, appeal of zoning officer petition. Me.
Again, Steve Gruenberg on behalf of the applicant 110 Main Street LLC. This is our appeal of the zoning officer's denial of our request for a change of tenancy, and the zoning officer indicated that the office use of for the proposed office of State of New Jersey Office of Legislative Services to have a district office for state assemblywoman Michelle Drulis was not a permitted use in the downtown business district. The property is at Main and Forester Streets. I think we're all familiar with it. It's the Cortez and Hay building. Aaron Colton has his office there, and in the downstairs floor was Benchmark Services. We are proposing to have the legislative office of Assemblywoman Drulis in that, and we believe it's a permitted use in the zone. And I know that you have your board planners report, who reviewed
the ordinance for you and indicated that the board could consider the proposed use as falling within category 26 and or 27 of your downtown business district ordinance. 26 identifies as a permitted use, engineering, surveying, architectural, accounting, auditing, bookkeeping, research and development, management, public relations and similar services. Public relations and similar services, we would argue, is right on point with what an assemblywoman's office does. Also under legal services. We're requesting that the board to direct the acting zoning officer to approve the change of tenancy application to permit this use for a legislative district office. I had Mr. Hay here to testify as to what the proposed use is, but I don't know if I need to go in to any more detail than that based upon Mr. Harris and Ms. McManus's report. I would argue that it's pretty clear that this falls under public relations and similar uses. I offer that testimony if you want to hear it. I know it's getting late.
Do we want to mark things as
We do. So, all the notices are in order. The board has jurisdiction to hear this application. As we do, we're gonna mark as exhibit A1, the applicant's application and all the supporting documents. We'll mark as A2, the notice and the publication and the proofs. And we'll mark as PB1, the board planner's letter dated October 4, 2024.
Thank you. We need to also note, I think that Councilwoman Fazaro recused herself.
Recused herself.
on this
She's not
application. She's
here
not present,
anyway, but
but I just wanted to make that
No,
note
absolutely.
that she
Thank
did
you.
that, yeah. So that there's no impropriety. Okay,
If you want to hear testimony from Mr. Hay, I can provide it, but I think it's pretty darn
is
clear.
it testimony about what an
About
assemblywoman does in an office?
Yes, yeah, and it's essentially what the proposed use is, which is
Mm.
essentially what I indicated. And it's similar to all the other uses, and it's been done in the borough before, in the downtown business district. It's an appropriate public relations and similar service use. It's a permitted use in the zone.
All right, I just, wanted to say a couple things. Number one, Beth never says that we could vote on this based on that. What she says is, these are what's allowed. And she never says you can approve it based on that. All she did was outline what the approved uses are. And as a former assemblywoman and state senator, I will assure you, public relations was absolutely not in my job description in any way, shape, or form. And I did it a heck of a lot longer than Assemblywoman Rulis, with all due respect to her. Nor was being a lawyer, part of my job description. My job description was to legislate and to handle constituent issues, not public relations. So I want to be very clear about that, but more clear that nowhere in this document does Beth say, you can approve this because it's that. All she does is say, this is what's allowed. Regarding what was done in the past, with other offices downtown, that was under a different zoning officer. Our current new zoning officer is, strictly by the book, which the council appreciates that he follows the letter of the law. And, there are other buildings in town that are zoned for real office. The council and this planning board are very desirous to keep retail uses downtown in retail buildings. I know that Mr. Hay had a tenant desirous of going into this space who is currently located on Stengel. And when the Office of Legislative Services, always offers more money than anybody else because it's not their money. It's always more desirable to have them in a space. So this is a desirable commercial retail space. And following the letter of definitions, legislative offices is not in here. And, like I said, we have other open office spaces in town, including Victorian Plaza, which we can rent, and we'd be happy to have her downtown, but not where we want more retail. Not where we
I'd
go
like to
retail.
present testimony then in support of the application.
Hmm?
I'd like to present testimony in support of the application, like Mr. Hay to present his testimony.
Okay.
You want to come up? So Dave, can you
Real quick.
swear him in, please?
Do you swear the testimony you're about to give us for is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Dave, can you tell the board, when you first, owned 110 Main Street?
I bought the building in, 2010.
And what are the present uses in that building?
It is all office space.
Excuse me, please pull the microphone closer.
My company is on the second floor and partially on the third floor. An attorney, Aaron Colton, is on the third floor with me. And we have a realtor in the corner, River Valley Realty,
What floor?
on the first floor, on the ground floor. And Cortez and Hay was using offices all the way over by the elevator on the first floor for closing offices during COVID, which are not really being used too much these days. And that's the entire tenant.
So you filed a change of tenancy application to allow Assemblywoman Gulas to have her legislative office before the board, correct?
Yes,
Before in the borough, in that space which used to be occupied by Benchmark, correct?
correct.
And at that time, the zoning officer which we supplied as part of the application just indicated that not a permitted use without any further comment, correct?
Correct.
Your understanding about the use of the space is that a assembly person is given an allowance for the hiring of staff to operate a district office and assist the legislator in constituent and policy work, correct?
Yes,
And this doesn't allow the conduct of any campaign or partisan political party activity in or from the district office. That's actually prohibited.
it is prohibited and they consider themselves not either Republicans or Democrats for the services they provide to the citizens.
And the legislative business that they conduct, it includes assisting constituents and resolving problems at the state, county, and local level.
Yes,
And they also meet with attorneys, fiscal analysts, and research analysts from the Office of Legislative Services to develop and draft legislation, correct?
yes,
And that includes legal opinions on behalf of constituents, correct?
they do that, yes.
They also meet with interested constituents, lobbyists, and advocacy groups to develop legislation for introduction, correct?
Yes,
Is it it's kind of a community-centered office that engages in legislative business?
yes,
They also provide services to the community in terms of property tax relief programs, notary applications, endorsement and issues, correct?
that is correct.
And provide advice and assistance with unemployment disability benefits, correct?
Yes,
Assistance with business and professional licenses and certifications,
that's, yes,
and general various services in terms of seniors, veterans, general assistance, including housing, food, and transportation for the public,
that
correct?
is correct.
And it also includes legal services in terms of legislation on behalf of constituents, correct?
Yes,
This isn't something new that's been done in the borough in the downtown business district, correct?
I'm understanding there were other offices used, yes.
In fact, a former assembly person had her business, her district office located in the downtown business district as commissioner previously, correct? Ms. McManus's report indicates that this does not fall within the category J as outlined in her report, which is a governmental office. Because
in terms of the SIC manual, Division J, Public Administration, she admits that it doesn't fall within that use group, correct? In her report on page 2 and 3?
Yes.
In fact, in paragraph 3.3D, she says, given the apparent inapplicability of Division J, the board can consider proposed office use under permanent use 26 and/or 27 and determine whether the similar services reference apply to the proposed use, correct?
Yes.
And 26 and/or 27 is exactly what I quoted, which is, and she underlines in her report, management and public relations services, which she underlines, and legal services. Legal services defined as establishments which are headed by members of the bar and are primarily engaged in offering legal advice and services, correct?
Yes.
And the assembly person's office will actually have legal consultants with the state legislator on behalf of the public in not just the borough of Flemington, but Hunterdon County, correct?
Correct.
I think I offer up Mr. Hayes for cross-examination, but this is a use that a prior assembly person has had her office in the downtown business district in the same vein as what we're proposing here.
There have been 3 assemblywomen who had offices in the downtown business area and 1 state senator. Actually, 2 state senators. All approved under different zoning officers. All not following zoning. So, again, you know, there are other buildings in the downtown area that are zoned for office. And the uses that you cited, real estate and legal insurance are all right into this use. I have a problem if she wants to go on your 2nd or 3rd floor. I got a problem if she wants to take retail space on the 1st floor.
But
That's
I
the
I guess that's the problem, Mayor, because that's not the way your ordinance reads. Your ordinance reads right now that office use and these uses are permitted on the 1st floor. So under the current zoning, this falls within the permitted office use. And I guess, I mean, your office, when you were assembly person, was on 1 Maple and it was a permitted use.
Right, but it
And
wasn't, but that is not Main Street retail.
But it's in the.
But I can tell you,
It's in the-
Zimmer,
let me
Zimmer,
say,
Barbara Connell,
it's-
Donna Simon, all had offices on Main Street,
Okay,
all of them.
and it's in the downtown business district.
It doesn't,
It does matter because that's the zoning that applies. And that's what your board planner has indicated, that that's the zoning that applies. It doesn't matter whether it's a downtown business district on Maple, on Main Street, or the downtown business district on Main. It's the downtown business district.
Notwithstanding that fact, no, she doesn't say that it has to be approved because that is, those uses are. We are being asked to decide whether this particular use, which is not expressly referenced in the codes, as far as I understand, I'll ask Mr. Harris to stop me if I'm saying something wrong. It's not expressly written, so we have to, it's coming to us for an interpretation. We're allowed to interpret whether this use matches these uses, because it's not expressly written in these SIC codes.
Correct,
right?
and
Is that right?
just to clarify, it's an appeal, not an interpretation, but yeah.
Sorry, but
for the
by
record, yes, yeah.
by
it's the
appealing,
board-
they're asking for our interpretation of what that code means and whether it was applied, whether we change the application of it effectively for this use, right?
Correct, yep.
Similar to other ones we've done like this, not being specific. And can I just ask you, because so Beth's report references, and in item C, she's provided that for us to try and see if this public administration SIC code description would help us in this case, but her report states that it's actually not applicable in this case. Am I interpreting that correctly in her report?
That's correct, yeah.
Right. So then we're still, so then it's, the onus is on us to interpret whether this this appeal matches any of the items in 26 or 27. Whether it's a legal service, a public relations service, an engineering service, an architectural
Or a
service.
similar service.
And none of,
Or service.
or similar services, and we have reviewed these kind of things before.
Can I make further comment? You know, we recently had a similar circumstance in another application where we had management or similar services. So the fact that it wasn't specifically identified in the retail management office as the letter of the ordinance, the board recognized that management or similar services applied under that circumstances. I would argue that given the history of the borough in allowing other assembly people and the zoning officers recognizing that assembly people's offices are those type of similar services, that has weight. And that it only makes sense when you look at the purpose of the downtown business district as set forth in my application, but also in your board planner's report, that it identifies that the purpose of the downtown business district is to provide mixed uses in the traditional business and government center of the borough. And that's why you would want, as historically has been the case, assembly people's offices in the downtown business center, business and governmental center of the borough. It's historically the way it's always been. It's appropriate for the zoning. It fits within those similar uses that are identified as permitted. And there's really no difference whether that downtown business district applies to Main Street or Maple Street or any other place in the downtown business district. As long as it's in the district, that's what the zoning provides.
What has
Well, it's still
changed, what has changed is that the mentality of both the council and the planning board want to see real retail on the first floors on Main Street. And we are moving into that direction. And this does not get a planning board to plan for that. It just removes one more space to be active from active retail. And what happened in the past historically doesn't mean that we had zoning officers following what the intention was of the planning board. And the planning board also perhaps wasn't following its own intentions. It's a new day. You know, we are very intent on cleaning up Main Street and bringing it back to its retail glory days with a huge investment of the Union Hotel property where people need to have things and places to go. Our towners don't need a legislative office to be right next to that building. It could be down, like I said, at Victoria Plaza. It could be out where at Plaza One. It could be on Dave's second or third floor. It doesn't have to take viable retail space where he had tenants who wanted to go into that space with real retail who were then denied it. So we know it's a viable space. We know it's an attractive space. And I, for one, want to see it be a retail space. That is the wave of the downtown of the future. What happened in the past is the past.
You are obligated to look at your zoning ordinance, and you can ask Ms. Kaczynski, as the way it reads now, and the way it's been interpreted historically. And right now, that downtown business district allows for office uses on the first floor. And in the past, assembly people's offices, your office included, in the downtown business district has been listed as a permitted use. And even though you may have intentions of changing the ordinance in the future to allow retail use on the first floor, that doesn't weigh into what you're supposed to be deciding tonight. And
No, but
that's
it's
whether
offensive to me that the Office of Legislative Services and an assemblywoman or man or senator or any elected official would shove something down the borough's throat the county seat's throat that we find not desirable at this point. That is offensive.
I don't understand how you can say that that's offensive when right now Mr. Hay can continue to have office use on that first floor in any other way. There could be an engineering firm,
I
there
know,
could be a lawyer in that first floor, there can be, he can move his insurance,
I know.
his title company down there. That's the zoning that you're obligated
and
to
with all
follow
due
at the present
respect,
time. And
All of
similar,
those
ser-
items are listed on the SIC.
and
correct?
similar services.
Well,
And
that's for us to decide whether we consider this use to be a similar service, so it's not a slam dunk, because your testimony seems to be suggesting.
Well,
It's for us,
I certainly understand that's
decide.
for you to decide. That's
thank
why
you,
we're here.
thank you, I'd like.
No,
Do you have
I-
any other testimony?
No,
Can I ask my
I do
board
have
to-
other argument though, then I just wanna highlight it. That I
Why don't
think,
why don't we finish up with any other questions from the board?
Yeah, I was-
questions from
I
the
wanted
public,
to
and then
ask
we'll
the
get
rest of
on
them.
with Mr. Hay and then.
Does anybody from the board have any questions for Mr. Hay on this topic, please, on to this? Brian, Melissa, Michael? Hopefully you're still there. I think I should insist on.
I'm good.
You're good, Melissa?
There we go. I couldn't get unmuted. I'm good.
Hmm?
I'm good, sorry.
Thank you. Mike?
I'm good. Just want to hear his other argument.
Right, okay, thank you. Right, could you submit your fund? There's nobody,
I know, just wanted to let the record reflect.
no, nobody in the public had a comment for this witness. Okay,
Good, Steve.
this is an office use. It's an office use that is very similar to all the permitted office uses in this zone that historically has been allowed in the downtown business district. That ordinance has not been changed. And the fact that, you know, it historically has been allowed and I think is highly persuasive that this use is always been considered a permitted use in the zone. If you have intentions of changing the ordinance in the future,
mhm.
that's up to the borough council, and certainly that's something that you can do, but it hasn't been done yet. And you need to be consistent in your interpretations and the history of the way assembly people's offices in the downtown business district have been allowed. And we would request that you direct the zoning officer to issue the change of tenancy form and allow this use to be done and affirm our appeal.
So your testimony mentions other assembly people. Do you have any evidence to submit for testimony
Sure.
of them being?
I mean, I
officers?
think Mayor Caro just.
No, I
think
was
that-
on second lane, but he was on the second floor.
Hmm,
Okay, Mayor Caro, your office was on One Maple Avenue, and that's in the downtown business district, correct? I mean, I can present that testimony, but you
No,
can see
absolutely.
that. And you also indicated that there were other assembly people who were located in the
Absolutely.
downtown business district.
but do you
Including
have,
state
that's,
senators.
so it's just verbal testimony, you don't have anything else? Okay, I'm just checking.
I mean, I can
I'm just
present
checking.
the directory showing Mayor Caro's assembly office.
I can
if
tell
she's
you where
completing
it
it.
was,
Right.
from Senators.
But that's not,
somebody-
he hasn't got the testimony.
my-
to
my-
show us.
But that was then, and that was the zoning officers plural, or last one and the one before that, who allowed it, just like they allowed additions that violated our historic district, they allowed impervious coverage in areas that wasn't legal, they allowed houses to be split into apartments that wasn't legal, they allowed all kinds of stuff. It's a new day, new zoning officer who follows the letter of the law, and I personally appreciate that, because the law's the law. You know, whatever's historically, whatever you used to say, historically allow, and is a highly persuasive argument. You know, we have empty buildings all over Main Street. We have buildings that haven't been used to their highest misuse. We have empty office space. Fill it appropriately. Second, third floors for offices. Victorian Plaza, which was built as offices. Main Street historically was downtown retail. You wanna go for historical? Up until the 70s, for 75 years, this town was rigorous retail in the downtown until malls started being built. And now we're trying to get it back. And this makes it difficult.
I'm just gonna say that if you can see that assembly people's offices were previously allowed in the downtown business district, it doesn't matter whether it's on the first floor or the second floor, because your current ordinance does not make that distinction. And therefore, it is persuasive that your office and other legislators have had their offices in the downtown business district.
All it is
And that is
persuasive that
because
we
it
had
is
zoning
evidence of
officers.
a permitted use.
All it means is that we had zoning officers that were willing to just sign off on it without looking at the letter of the law and what our ordinance actually said. That's all is indicative of.
Another question, Mr. Grimberg, does our ordinances specifically mention legislators?
No, it
It
does not.
can't, because otherwise you wouldn't have come to the
But
appeal.
your,
So it doesn't, so
your
it doesn't,
planner,
it
your
doesn't
planner has indicated that it also
expressly-
doesn't include that the proposed legislative office does not include the definition as set forth in J of the SIC manual.
she
And
was trying to
because of
help you out
that,
with that there. She
and
was trying to
because
help
of
your
that, the
argument out.
board can consider it to be falling within under categories 26 and
No.
27.
It's just saying
under
that's the
public-
only ones we can consider, and
Public
it's not written
relations
in
and
those ones.
similar services and legal services, because they are so similar.
Yeah, okay, do you have any other points or
That's it, thank
testimony to make in the close? Okay, so. On the rest of the board, anybody have any questions or comments to discuss, or should we get a resolution?
Let's just, and again, just to make sure the
Before-
record is clear, anyone in the public that
Public.
has any comments that they wanna
Do
make
you
on
see
that.
any, Eileen, cause I can't see them right now.
John,
There are two people on, as attendees, but I don't see any
If
hands.
any member of the public wants to make a comment or ask a question, could you raise your hand, use the raise hand function? Anybody in the room want to make a comment or question? I think it should be,
Alright, so let's make a motion to close public session.
yeah, can we have a motion to close the public session, please?
So moved, Campion.
Second,
All in favor?
Aye,
So then I think we need a motion,
right.
and then we can make a discussion of the.
Now, what would the motion be? Because it's an appeal, our motion would be to uphold
Correct,
the
correct,
findings of the,
correct.
or not,
So-
wait, which language do we go with then?
To grant or deny the applicant's appeal, that's what the motion.
So if we grant the appeal.
You're
Granting
overturning
the appeal, right,
the
I
decision.
wanna make sure everyone knows
If you're
what.
denying the appeal, you're upholding.
So the motion is to grant the appeal as presented today by the applicant, right? That would be the motion.
I don't know
Oh,
what.
does
you want
anybody
the
want to
motion
make a
be,
motion?
I'm
so-
making a motion that we deny the applicant's appeal
Right,
and uphold the zoning officer's determination.
is there a second for that?
I'll
Okay.
second.
Okay, thanks, Melissa. So we have a motion on the table. So if we take a vote on that, then we're
So let's have a
denying,
discussion
so
on it.
yes, a discussion on that,
Yep.
what that would mean. Right, anybody from the board, please, Mike, Brian, or Melissa, have any discussion on that item, please? On that motion?
And, you know, I, just to kind of clarify it, and if anybody has any questions, just let me know, but again, so what we're looking at is the specific principal uses are in 22, which is the offices for finance, insurance, and real estate services. 26, engineering, surveying, architectural, accounting, auditing, bookkeeping, research and development, management, public relations, and similar services. That one has that similar services language in there as well. And then 27 is legal services. So what the board is deciding, as the chair said, is in deciding whether to grant or deny the appeal is essentially making a determination as to whether the proposed office use that you heard presented by the applicant's counsel and through testimony and the historical information that was provided would fall within one of those three.
Right, thank you. So, anybody from the board have any discussion they want to add, please?
So I just wanna state for the record, you know, it'd be great to have her down in Flemington. There are other buildings that are more appropriate. That would be more desirable for the borough to have used as office space rather than buildings that are so desirable to have retail space.
Okay, Melissa, do you have anything for me, please?
No, I think
I'm-
I
I'm-
would just echo pretty much the previous comments. I think it would be awesome for her to be in Flemington. Again, I don't know if that's necessarily the right seat.
Okay. And how do you feel about whether the use as proposed is covered in the DB district ordinance? How do you feel? We had some discussion on that. Melissa, I'm asking you.
Sorry, I was trying to unmute myself again. I've been. I don't think it is. Like, I keep reading the definitions and I just, I don't see it. I'm sorry. I just don't think it's the right use.
To speak on that. Brian, do you have any discussion?
No, I just thought, downtown Main Street, the whole goal is to revive it. I would welcome everyone to want to have their own space, but retail is what we're focused on, if that's the goal. So again, I kind of echo with what everyone else is saying.
Michael? Mike?
No, I'm good.
Okay, right. Thank you. Right, okay. If there's no further discussion, then I guess we're ready to take a vote.
Can I make
Okay,
can I make a statement before you go to the vote?
Well, we kind of, I don't know, we have.
No, I guess I
time for a
can, I
statement.
guess I can.
Thank you. You can make a statement, sir.
Okay. That space has been on the market for rent for 1.5 years. The Union Hotel is going in. I have contacted a number of people to come in there to try to take that space in anticipation of retail down here. No one is coming to Flemington at this point. There isn't anyone looking to come in there because we have tried. It's been listed with realtors. I've contacted wineries and everybody. They don't want to come in.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, that's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's a nice thought to
Mhm.
have all retail down there. I don't see it happening.
The town of
Okay.
Clinton changed their zoning to all retail on the first floor. 24 years it took until they had it. 24 years. That's called planning.
I can't imagine having that empty space for 24 more years.
Well,
Let's
we
keep the
can't
focus
comment on
on,
that because we don't know that for sure. That's
Yeah.
not part of our, we're considering the uses as defined in the ordinance and our interpretation of whether this use is included in that list.
correct,
That's
that's our charge.
That's our charge right now. Return. All right, so Eileen, could we call the roll on the motion on the floor, please?
Mayor Carroll,
Let me just,
So-
let's check which way, because the
Okay,
motion
yeah,
is
so
to
the
deny
correct.
the appeal.
Correct.
So
A
if you
yes?
vote yes, you deny it.
Correct.
If you vote no, you allow them to have the appeal. That makes sense to everybody? If you have any
Mhm.
questions, let me know.
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Ms. Swingle,
Yes.
Mr. Campion,
Yes.
Ms. Giffen,
Yes.
Mr. Semino.
Yes.
Thank you for your time.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you, yeah, sorry it took so long to speak now.
Good night.
All right, bye. All right, so moving on to item 10.
Good night, everyone.
Good night. I propose, I don't think this is going to need discussion, given the hour especially, we kind of touched on it in the Liberty Village. I did reach out, there was a question raised last meeting that the Form A, that why is it happening? And we've, so I did reach out to, I forgot his name.
End deal.
Ken Deal. I did reach out and I asked him to explain, and he did explain why they were splitting it up was that the current form doesn't match the actual ordinance and regulations anyway. So they are doing it twofold to match what is in the ordinance. And also, I raised the question that was raised by somebody at the board that they were worried about the extra application fee, because then by having two forms, as we did discuss with Liberty Village, that then two application fees are of the same, where we were previously only asking for one, are required. Again, apparently that was contrary to our ordinance. We were supposed to be collecting two fees. So it's not like he's changing anything by changing the form. We are just aligning the forms with what was supposed to be being done. And certainly with the consideration that the fact I did ask him to consider, and he did give me just anecdotal evidence. We could ask for more if we wished as a board, but he gave me anecdotal evidence that basically for most applications, that fee does in no way cover the costs that we actually expend. So considering we want to save the borough from bankrolling projects, I certainly would think they would be minded to change it to the two forms, and they can collect the correct fees that they need. I did also say that we would put consideration of that fee if he could provide me with concrete evidence that of how much he actually spends, and if the fee is not enough, that we could roll that into the discussion we're doing with the escrows and the fees. And
I think that's a great idea.
Because if we are not covering what we are expending, then borough taxpayers are essentially supporting applicants, which isn't fair.
Yeah.
So.
Can I just add to that?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, this was a discussion this morning, between, the DPW, liaisons and the department heads, Ken Deal and Mike Campion, regarding, you know, what's involved in this. And one of the things that they really stressed as well, you know, besides going back to the two forms, which a prior mayor, I think 2 mayors ago, just decided to told them to do one form and never read the ordinance and never talked to them about what this was gonna mean. The fact that, you know, if it's taking Ken a really long time to do calculations, Josh couldn't do his part with the water because it was all in one form. So, but all of that aside, you know, the stress to applicants that they fill out this Form A. And, you know, and I've asked this question at the planning board hearings before, you know, is there sewer and is there water? And these are our two biggest commodities that we have. We have the only sewer capacity left in this county. And, you know, water is a precious commodity. We have 10 wells, we're gonna be building 2 more, and then we can't build anymore. We're out of space to build, or we're out of aquifer, basically, or good areas where there's, you know, good perk to build more wells. So, you know, we're limited on what we can do, and we need to make sure that sewer and water go to applications that mean something to this town, what the people want in this town. They, you know, if we approve site plans, the DPW subcommittee by ordinance has the right to deny water and sewer. So we need to be cautioning applicants that, you know, that just because the planning board is approving something doesn't give them a slam dunk guarantee they're getting sewer and water. It doesn't. And they go in to the sewer and water departments, especially water, demanding allocation as soon as they get approvals. And, you know, the sewer and water department, they were reviewing a prior application that was a D variance at this planning board last year. It almost came to a lawsuit because the DPW subcommittee and I think it was the water department was leery about giving them the capacity. And, you know, it got very testy, with the town.
So is this something then that should be being fed into our decision process? If we can't, it must be amazing, if we can't provide them
We
with
don't
the
have any
facility to build their project, then what's the point of them going through the procedure?
Well, that's a really good question.
Well, that's what the will serve letters are for, and I think Bob's gotta really weigh in on that aspect of it, because I don't know to what extent we have the ability to deny, because that also could be a very fluid issue.
Hard to
But,
find.
but if,
Yes.
but we, but it sounds like we're gonna have to come to the point where we have to deny because we don't have the capacity, so
But I don't
there's,
think you
I
have
don't
to
know how there
do
needs to be
it.
some
Yeah, that's
input
an
Yeah, right,
somehow.
that's the problem, is it's out of our jurisdiction, but.
Correct.
But warning the applicants is not out of our jurisdiction.
Right, we can say there's only this much
And
left,
remember, you
might-
have, so if you have a site plan approval or a subdivision approval, that approval is good for an extended period of time.
and-
So, you know,
right, so
again-
we have to sort of set it aside almost.
Well, or, again, the applicants do a lot of things at their own risk and whatever the case may be, but you know, you get an approval now in the hopes that. You know, something
Yeah,
is
because just
gonna
because you
come
have an
up.
approval, then when you pull for
Correct.
your permits is when you then get assigned. the
Correct,
water,
or
right?
you get
Yeah.
extensions,
So it's
something
on
is
your
good for
risk.
2 years plus 2 1-year extensions, so essentially, a lot of times you have 4 years. During which you can. Hope that there might be something coming online for you to be able to use, I mean,
Right.
it happens in other towns where, you know. That less fortunate than this one, you
Right.
know, so.
It sounds like, if we can, is there, when you say we've only got so much, is there can we quantify that as a number or a percentage
With the
left?
sewer capacity, definitely we can, I don't know about the water,
Right,
I mean, we don't have 2 of those wells in line.
right, so there's a comment.
One of them is permitted, the other one, we don't even have the easement for it yet.
Mayor, we have RVE updating our firm capacity,
Right,
which will dictate how much water we still have available.
perfect, Michael, so then we'll be able to get that number, because I'm thinking then if basically we may, the main way we may be only able to cover it, because it's not our jurisdiction, is put into the resolution. The provision of water and sewer is not guaranteed and is at your risk at the point when you choose to pull the permit and
When-
what's available, right?
When are they
Put something
supposed to
like
have that, Mike?
They
That's
certainly can, I mean, honestly, at a certain point, there's only so much spoon feeding you can do an applicant,
but
I mean,
it's-
they need to understand. You know, if they're going to be sophisticated enough to come in here and get an approval, they need to understand everything that's associated with it, but that being said. You know, we certainly can, I don't know, the people that are gonna understand that are gonna understand it, the people that aren't, so I have no problem putting that in there, I have no problem. You know, making that now standard, you know, condition that, you know, this is something that they have to go and get. Bob covers a lot of that in his technical reviews also. You know, make sure you have this, so I mean, we kind of do along the way, but to add that extra added step, I don't have.
I
to.
just like to eventually get.
That's why they put the forms in there to
Is
begin
RV
with.
gonna have that for us?
We asked them for the update on Thursday. Hopefully we'll have it this week or next week.
Oh, okay. Okay.
I just think, that's something worth keeping in mind of how much we have, and then because it's certainly, it's like, it's just it's a non-negotiable, we can't pull water from somewhere, we can't pull sewer,
No.
capacity from somewhere, so when we keep being told by certain people who are still stuck on a report from 10 years ago that we can add more and more housing to this town, right? But basically, we can only add it up to the point of the water capacity.
Well, my
now.
question, Kara, is it possible to assign capacity to various zones, like the Route 12 area where we want to see some big
No
box?
idea.
Can we assign sewer and water capacity?
That would be more of a planning thing,
Yeah,
wouldn't it?
I
Like,
can-
does anybody do
I mean,
that?
legally, if we could do that, and that way we would know.
Restrict it to a certain zone.
Yeah,
even,
so
we
that
can
we don't
encourage
run out,
development
we get-
in one zone
If we
also.
get what we really want, which the people all say they want, which is entertainment, big box, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And we get a housing subdivision coming in at the same time somewhere, you
That
know.
would take it all
and-
up,
Right, but if it was zoned for Route 12 and it was guaranteed that they would get
yeah.
capacity for something fabulous, or Park Avenue. You know, the old egg auction is all zoned off this, I don't know what they have, but if something fabulous came in there with the new zone, then at least
Yeah,
we'd have it there for them and we couldn't be forced literally to just give it to some other site.
yeah, so I mean, it's
So you're gonna
against-
see if you can do that?
appeal.
Yeah, I'll talk to Beth about it and see what, yeah, cause I'm not
If
sure.
that's legal, I mean, I know we could like zone, we could legally zone liquor licenses to different parts of this town. We could.
So that's zoning, That's.
It
We're
is,
talking about
right,
zoning
yeah,
the
that's
water, we're
zoning.
talking about
but
zoning
it's
the
also a
water capacity.
limited, it's also a
Reasons.
limited thing.
I don't know if you can zone utilities, that's really what you're talking
Yeah,
about, as
yeah.
opposed to zoning uses.
Well, I'm
I
talking
have no
about
idea.
zoning commodities, not utilities. You can call, I mean, they technically legally are utilities, but they're really commodities in this town.
And they were finite,
That's why they're commodities,
yeah,
you
it's
know?
not like we've got unlimited, you can do
Sure, it's
whatever you want
tomatoes and
wherever.
fruit, but it's,
It's just, it's a good thought, it's a
Oh,
good
that's
thought, I think
fine.
that ties into
Okay.
the whole thing. Yeah, thank you, so we did have a discussion in the end, sorry, but I was
Yeah.
meaning just to say, we'll move ahead with what the sewer and water department are asking for in terms of that form after the discussion we had last time. Okay, all right, chair items, gonna be really quick, next meeting is October 22nd. I'm actually not gonna be here, so Jim will be running it, Jim probably doesn't know yet, because he's not here today, but he'll be running the meeting. We have the public hearing for the HCDC, I think that's 111 Main Street, isn't it, if I'm
Yes.
remembering rightly? And then possibly the ordinance for the HPC map, because council are going to be discussing the
it should be,
HPC on
it should
Monday.
be introduced on Monday.
So then we can tie up, if there's anything coming from that, we kept that in abeyance, and otherwise we can just push through that. Which was for the master plan element, wasn't it, that we had to fix, remember Beth said we had to fix something,
Yeah.
that could be done then.
Okay.
Sorry, Ellen, I don't think we need to talk about escrow fees tonight,
No.
right now, if you don't mind.
No.
We'll keep that for next time, or try and
Absolutely.
put something together, I'm
No.
not gonna be here.
No, I just wanted to get that out and just.
I
left it on
appreciate
there
the
so
work
that-
you did on it, we talked about it earlier, I actually just pulled together a list of what the recent escrows have been and what's left, and I think it's just a useful document anyway. Item 12, bills were circulated just before the meeting, so can I get a motion to audit the bills,
I'm gonna
please?
go on the bills.
Can I get a second on that?
I'll second.
Thank you, Brian.
Mayor Carroll,
Yes.
Mr. Smino,
Yes.
and
Yeah,
Mr. Campion,
Abstain.
Ms. Swingle.
Yes.
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Do we need to go into executive session? We do not. Yay. So, okay, motion to adjourn,
So moved.
right, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, hope to see more of you in person next time. Thank you very much for your time. Bye. Let's
Bye.
switch off the.
Good night.
Night, sorry, yeah.